Trapped in and now your body's frozen. Broken down, you've got nothing left. When you're high on emotion and you're losing your focus and you feel too exhausted to pray. Don't get lost in the moment or give up when you're closest. All you need is somebody to say it's okay not to be okay.
Me a hi.
Hi, Chrissy. I can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay. Am I clear enough, Dale? Before we begin, she's telling us she's recording again and again. Yeah. I'd like to give you a little bit of do's and don'ts. Please make sure that your mic is on mute all throughout unless you are speaking. Please make sure that your video is on mute. So if you're sitting with shorts, no issues. We just don't want to see it. Yeah. And also, we will be taking questions towards the end of each segment. So you can, but as and how the questions come to you, please do type it down in the chat box and we will make a note of as many as we can. Another point, if you have trouble with watching the screen or with hearing whatever is going on, please do put it in the chat box and our volunteers will help you. All right, I think it's time that we begin now. It is 10:30. Hi, everyone. My name is Chrissy Dana Gomes. I am the clinical psychologist at Cooch Mental Health Foundation, the rehabilitation program, and I am your host today. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you to this free online symposium that is brought to you by Cooch Mental Health Foundation. So if you were not there for day one, which was yesterday, today is day two. I'll give you a little bit of a recap. This symposium, the theme of the symposium is centered around schizophrenia. All right. The whole theme of this symposium is demystifying schizophrenia. Now, why schizophrenia? The reason that we decided to do this in particular is because 24th May is commemorated all over the world as World Schizophrenia Day. And thus we decided it's time to bring out there awareness towards the subject at hand. Now, let's face it, the media has thrown words like schizophrenia and depression and delusion and hallucinations all over. So nowadays, if we're sad, we think, oh, we're depressed, we see a twig, we think it's a snake, and we think, oh my God, are we having hallucinations? Is it delusion? So to what extent do you really understand these words that are thrown around at a basic level? That is one of the aim. That is one of the goal of today's symposium, to make sure that you understand things at a better level. And also you're getting your information not from Google, you're getting your information from the best of the best. Okay, so that is one aim. The other aim is also at a little higher level. We know that we've made huge strides in neurochemistry and treatment and symptomatology, coping, psychosocial aspects, genetics of schizophrenia. But even after all of that literature that we have, there are still a lot of gray areas. There are still a lot. There's uncertainty with certain questions. So when we sat down to write down topics, it flowed because we come across these questions on a daily basis. So the second aim is to clear it slightly higher level also and get together the best learned speakers to talk about the same. All right, I hope you've got everything that I was trying to say so far. Once again, my name is Chrissy Dana Gomes. I'm so happy to have all of you here today for our free online symposium, Demystifying Schizophrenia. Let us work together to understand better, to gain knowledge from learned speakers, from legitimate sources, to therefore understand how to cope and reduce the stigma and increase the acceptance, most importantly, towards people with mental illness and more specifically with schizophrenia. Another little bit of a recap. Let's talk about the program. We had day one, which was yesterday. It was a series of tiny talks. And if you missed it, you really missed a good show. We try to record it. We might put it up if it is possible. However, having a live show is a whole different ball game. Today is day two. We will have two segments. The first half will be a debate, and it's going to be quite riveting. I'm already very excited. And the second half will be a panel discussion. Tomorrow, which is World Schizophrenia Day, will be day 3. And what we will be doing is an online campaign. We want to make sure that we reach out to a lot of people who cannot come, say, for a talk and show their support in some way or another. So tomorrow will be #painted purple. I am wearing purple. Okay, the whole idea is purple, which is associated with schizophrenia. I'm not going to give you a lot about what's going to happen tomorrow. For that, you will have to watch out for the poster on Instagram and Facebook. Please look out for Kuj Goa and follow the easy steps that come out on the poster. Once again, thank you so much for spending all of this time to be here. We are really, really grateful, and it's support enough already. Okay, without further ado, I think let's begin with day 2. Our first segment is a debate. I think you know this already when you look at the poster. It's a debate. And if you've seen the topic is to marry or not to marry for people with mental illness. And trust me, when we sat down to talk about this, when we sat down to discuss what are the topics we should include, this one came to us as a no-brainer. It was just right there for us. Because the most simplest reason as to why we have did this particular topic is because it is the most asked question. It is one that is so uncertain. Yes, marriage is a part of a social construct. It is part of a developmental phase over a period of time. And still we don't know. We are uncertain about, okay, pros, cons, what to do, what not to do. Will it work? Will it not work? Severity level of the schizophrenia, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, there is so much of doubt when it comes to this particular question. And we have people asking us this question over and over and over again in our line of work. It comes from caregivers, it comes from clients, from students that are studying with us, in turn, and even fellow mental health professionals, including ourselves with various experiences that we have had. So that is one of the main reasons why we decided, let's put it out there. Let a lot of answers come about through this program, through this debate, and let's get the best of the best minds to talk about it. So let me begin by introducing our moderator for this particular debate, and then let the fight begin. Our moderator for the debate is Dr. Ravindra Agarwal. Half of what I'm going to say to you, you already know. He's pretty well known. Dr. Ravindra Agarwal is a consultant psychiatrist who is based in Goa. He runs the psychiatry department at Manipal, Goa. He is also the director of the Antarman Center. I'm sure you know about that. They include, they consist or they include a multidisciplinary team of psychiatrists, psychologists, and counselors. He is the Executive Council member of Sangat Goa, the Vice President of Psychiatry Society of Goa, and the member of Goa State Mental Health Authority. Okay, I would not be able to say that in one breath. All right. It is so good to have you on board with us, Dr. Ravindra Agarwal, and we're so thankful that you agreed to do this. I will now hand it over to you.
Hi, thank you so much, and very spirited introduction. So thank you so much. Let's move my slide away and let's focus on the slides of our speakers for today. So the topic, as has been already pointed out, it was a no-brainer. It's such an important topic, and a topic which is usually not interested in public discourse. So I congratulate Kuj, Dr. Peter, for actually bringing this topic forward, because otherwise we don't usually discuss it. This is always hushed away. And you know what? I think the debate is a very interesting way of actually discussing this topic. That is because people often land up taking strong positions for or against this issue, whether people with mental illness should marry or not. So I think as we debate about this today, the audience may find themselves identifying or agreeing with a set with a particular team, that is for pro or against. So I think debate is a very good medium of discussing it. Let me introduce the speakers for today. We have got two speakers for today for pro team and two speakers against. And after that, I will discuss the rules, and then I will also mention about the judges for today's debate. So the first speaker is Dr. Samitra Patare, a very well-known figure in mental health in India and a good friend. I feel very proud to say that he's my good friend. He's the director of the Center of Mental Health Law and Policy, and is, as I said, already a psychiatrist. He's provided technical assistance to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare in drafting new Mental Health Care Act. I mean, that's actually understating that he's actually the architect of the act, and he has been in Goa. He has held many talks and public seminars introducing and kind of clearing confusion about the act. He's a member of the Mental Health Policy Group appointed by Government of India to draft India's first national mental health policy. He served as a WHO consultant in many low and middle income countries, assisting them in drafting and implementing mental health legislation and national mental health policies. So basically, not only in India, he's been helping many other countries as well. So thank you, Dr. Patare, for being here and agreeing to be part of this debate. A big welcome to you. So now the next speaker, again, Dr. Patare, and his next speaker, that is Arjun, is going to be speaking for for the debate topic. That is, they're going to arguing in favor. So Arjun, he's a lawyer and psychologist by qualification. He's worked with a range of stakeholders for implementation of the Mental Health Care Act 2017 and mental health policy. He also was in Goa, where he did conduct seminars and workshops for promotion of Mental Health Act. While appointed as a law clerk to the Supreme Court of India, he focused on developing social legal interventions on access to justice and marginalized communities in Gujarat. And at the center, he co-leads various projects on law and policy and service reform on mental health and suicide prevention. So a big welcome to you too, Arjun. So nice to see you again here. Okay, so now the other two speakers who are going to be talking against the topic. Can we share those slides? Otherwise, I've got them here. Okay. So Jervis Pereira is the founder of PR branding and marketing agency, Digital Quiz, national and international experience as a PR consultant, served in that capacity to the Chief Minister of Goa and in regional head for BCEL, which is a marine design engineering firm, and has worked with Turner and G, trustee and ex-CEO of Goa Entrepreneur Mentoring Service Trust, former director of Goa IT Incubation Center and the first IT incubator in Goa. So he is the person to go to if there are any budding startups here, and Jervis should be the person whom we should aim for. He's member of Toastmasters International since 2010, and he prefers meditating underwater. So I'm going to ask him after the debate whether he meditates with the scuba on or without it. Hi, big welcome to you also, Jervis. And the last speaker for today, Runa manages. She's the founder of Speaking Studio, a persona and a skill development center. She's a certified trainer for Trinity College London, grade and certificate examinations, conducts corporate training programs in the area of corporate etiquettes and communication skills, active member of Toastmasters International, and currently teaching at Temple College Goa and visiting faculty at Goa University. A big welcome to you as well, Runa. Thank you, so nice, and we look forward to hearing you and Jervis. And Soumitra and Arjun, I mean, although we may be technically very good, you have got a formidable opposition here, and both of them are very good at entrepreneurship. So, okay, so proceeding rules for today. So both parties or both teams are going to get 10 plus 7. So the first 10 minutes are going to be a pitch talk where they're going to introduce their arguments and they're going to base the rest of the debate on. So the party 4 will go first, then the next party will go next team. And then there'll be 7 minutes for rebuttal. That is, the other team member will then rebut the first party's pitch talk. And after these 7 minutes, after the second party has finished, then it's going to be a no hold barred debate, of 7 to 10 minutes. I look forward to actually sitting back and enjoying and not interfere in that. I will step in only if I feel that that any of the team is absolutely not getting any time to talk about what they want to do that. So 7 to 10 minutes, and Peter has given me instructions at 14 minutes I have to stop. That is, at 14 minutes of no hold barred discussion, I have to stop. And the final point today is the judges. So we have got three illustrious judges who are going to, because in a debate, somebody has to at the end win. So we have got three judges here. Dr. Abhijit Naktani. Again, everybody knows Dr. Naktani. He's an associate professor at London School of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene, and he's the chairperson of the Executive Council at Sangat. He's a well-known figure in Goa and also a researcher of international repute. Second judge for today is Dr. Peter Castellano. Again, I don't think I'm going to do the error of introducing him. Everybody knows him. Third judge for today is Dr. Margaret Lobo. She is a music therapist. So, judges, there are going to be two criterias for the judgment, on which you can decide that which team has performed well or not. The first criteria is going to be content, is how good and how convincing are the arguments put forward by the team. The second criteria is the delivery style. So you acknowledge before not delivery style is a kind of a difficult criteria because this is being conducted online, and so the audience will not, and even the judges may not be able to see how your body language is. So you have to now focus all the body language on your upper torso. So please move your upper body as much as possible so that the judges can give you marks. That's all for now. So I am going to now invite the first team. So Soumitra and Arjun, which of you is going to be, before that, any questions from the team members? Any clarification needed? Okay, Soumitra has his hands up. Soumitra, please unmute yourself. Soumitra, you're still muted.
This is very biased judging criteria. We are already handy because you're going to judge on how presentation skills and all, and we are competing against PR people who have been doing and marketing people who do this all the time. So you please understand and take into account that this is loaded against us right at the beginning.
So there, Soumitra has already started. Judges, it's up to you whether you want to get convinced by him or not. But then it is up to you. But Soumitra, I mean, you are the expert here. So there are marks for the content as well. Nevertheless, any other questions from the judges, from the team members? No, not for now. Okay, Jarvis, yeah, please go ahead.
Sorry, thank you. Just to be clear, we have 7 minutes after this, the first team, both the teams are finished for the rebuttal, and then so it is pro for 7 minutes and then against for 7 minutes. Yes.
Of the rebuttal. So 10 minutes for the pitch talk, then 7 minutes for the rebuttal. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Soumitra and Arjun, who is going for the first? Who's making the pitch talk?
I will from our team. I will be making the pitch talk. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to mute myself now. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning to everybody. Thank you very much for being here, and a warm welcome to all of you. So okay, I'm going to begin with our sort of pitch and our first set of arguments, which is in favor of the motion, which is to say that people with mental illness do have a right to marry. There was a study published in the British Medical Journal last year. It said that about 1 in 3 women in India are likely to suffer domestic violence or abuse from their intimate partners or spouses or their husbands. The National Crime Records Bureau, which is the official authority for recording crimes in India, in 2019 reported that of all the cases which were registered under crimes against women, about 1/3 of the cases were on cases about cruelty by the husband or his relatives or of domestic violence, right? So clearly domestic violence abuse is a huge problem in our country. And yet we don't find ourselves ever discussing things like whether patriarchal, abusive, violent men are fit to marry or to be married or not, right? But here we are discussing this question that are people with mental illness fit to marry or not, or whether they have the right to marry or not. And I think it's important to understand that this question is rooted in a deep history, in a long history of discrimination and unfair treatment against persons with mental health illnesses that mainstream society has meted out against them. And there are various reasons for this, not the least that most of our problems with or our perceptions with mental illness come from our own seated discomfort with the idea of mental illness or something which is not conforming according to what society says is the social norm, so on and so forth. But one of the reasons why people with mental illness have been discriminated against is because of a range of false stereotypes and wrong or false perceptions that have been sort of believed by mainstream society in general. Now, so for example, one of the most common perceptions is that people with mental illness are dangerous, right? Or that they're violent, or that mainstream society needs to be protected from such people and they need to be locked away in mental health hospitals or institutions. However, scientific study has actually says that people with mental illness are more likely to be victims of violence and abuse and human rights violations than actually being perpetrators of such violence. Another common perception is that people with mental illness are irrational, right? That they don't have the ability to make their own decisions about their own lives, that they don't know what's in their own best interest, that they end up making wrong decisions all the time. Now, again, scientific research has proven that people with mental illness have the same kind of abilities to make decisions as anybody else in society, if not better. They're as capable of making decisions on their own. Scientific research, especially the field of behavioral economics, also says that all human beings usually make decisions on the basis of irrational motives, right? So irrational decision making is actually the norm. And all of us, irrespective of our status or identity, end up making wrong decisions all the time. So for example, one could argue that for me to agree to do a debate at 10:30 a.m. on a Sunday morning is an extremely irrational and a wrong decision. But so be it. I've made that decision and I've gladly consented to it. So I think the point is that while we all have the ability to make wrong or irrational decisions, for some reason in history and even in law across countries in the world, people with mental illness have been prohibited from making a lot of decisions which affect their own lives, right? Whether that could be entering in contracts, that could be voting, opening a bank account, transacting in property, making their own mental health care decisions about how they wish to be treated or how they don't wish to be treated. And of course, they've also been prohibited from entering into marriages and starting their own families. Now, coming back to the question of whether people with mental illness actually have a right to marry or whether they should marry, let me begin with the law first, because I'm a lawyer first and comes most easily to me. So if you just looked at international law, some of you might be aware there's a very important international law treaty which is known as the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Now, Article 23 of the UN Convention says that the right to marry, right, is a fundamental human right for all persons with disabilities, including those who have mental illnesses. So every person, whether or not they have a mental illness, has the right to enter, to kind of marry, to have their own family, to have their own children, and their own family life. The Indian Constitution also has recognized the right to marriage as a fundamental, as a part of the to life and liberty under Article 21 of the Constitution. The Supreme Court in various decisions has said that the right to marry is a fundamental human right of all Indians, right? Regardless of their status or identity or whatever group that they belong to. So the law is very clear that the right to marry is a fundamental human right, which must be extended to all human beings, irrespective of their identity. Now, marriage in itself, or let's kind of look at what marriage symbolizes, which is in one register, in one sense, it symbolizes human intimacy, connectedness, relationships, the ability to receive love, to give love, to feel validated, affirmed, recognized. Now, these are values, or these are phenomena which are fundamental. They're essential for all human beings to flourish, to live a fulfilling life, to live a life that they feel is something that they want to live for themselves, that they value the most for themselves, right? But there are also studies, and there are various longitudinal studies which have also kind of looked at data, and they have kind of concluded that a relationship, social connectedness, and even marriage can also play a very affirming role in helping people manage their own mental health problems, their emotional concerns, or any kind of distress that they're experiencing. And in some cases, these relationships have also shown to have reduced the kind of problems, mental health problems that people experience. Now, I'm not saying, please, let's be clear that marriage is the only panacea or the cure to mental health problems, if there is anything. But all I'm saying is that if people who are of a marriageable age, who consent to marry, who desire to spend their life with somebody else, whether as a live-in relationship or as a legally recognized marriage or in any other form, then they must be allowed to enjoy that right, because it is a fundamental freedom for them to be able to live a life that they wish to live, that they value the most for themselves. Right. The second point is that often when we're talking about the right of persons with mental illness to marry, some of the arguments, and I'm sure our worthy opponents today will potentially make this argument, that people with mental illnesses, because of the conditions that they go through, or the difficulties that they might experience because of their condition, are unfit for marriage, right? Well, the Indian law, which is Indian marriage law in terms of the Hindu Marriage Act or the Special Marriage Act, also has a very problematic provision which says that any person with a mental disorder
Arjun, you may have 2 minutes more.
Sure, who is unfit, any person with a mental disorder who is unfit for marriage and procreation of children cannot marry, right? Now, this is a deeply problematic provision because of the fact that we never consider whether people have physical illnesses, who are unable to fulfill their marriage responsibilities, or for due to medical reasons are unable to procreate children. We never extend these kinds of provisions or arguments to such individuals. So there is a clear discrimination between people with mental illnesses because of our false stereotypes, our stigmatizing attitudes, and our belief that people with mental illness are not completely human, right? Or that they don't deserve the rights that other people who don't have mental illnesses enjoy without any fetters or without any barriers. So I'm going to rest my arguments with the final statement or argument that this very proposition that people with mental illness don't have a right to marry is discriminatory, because it discriminates people with mental illness. It sort of discriminates people with mental illnesses as compared to people who don't have a mental illness, even though both might be equally unfit to marry at a certain point in times in their life. The second is that it is unscientific, because science has clearly proven that people with mental illnesses have the ability to make decisions and do anything that people without mental illnesses are able to do. And the third is what I feel is that this proposition betrays a fundamental understanding of what it means to be human, of what it means to have to sort of engage in human relationships and how people benefit from the same. And this is an understanding which comes from people who don't have a mental illness, because they have a more superior understanding of what it means to be human. So I do feel that this is not only harmless, it's also unethical, and it also it completely dehumanizes people with mental illness who are no different from others. So I'm going to rest my arguments at this and look forward to hearing from our worthy opponents. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Arjun. Yes, your arguments, yes, your worthy opponents are already clapping for you. So that's great. So now we have got Runa from the opposing team. She's going to go first. So here's inviting you, Runa. Best of luck.
Thank you, Dr. Ravindra. Good morning to one and all, Dr. Peter, all our esteemed judges, our guests present today, and very especially my esteemed opposition panelists, Dr. Soumitra and Advocate Arjun, of course, my teammate Jervis. I'm really glad to be given this opportunity to propose my opinions and thoughts against marriage and why people with mental illness should not marry. I would like to share my screen because I think the visuals that I want to show you would add to the points that I'm trying to make. So the way I see it, when a friend tells me, that he or she is contemplating marriage, my first reaction is, are you out of your mind? Why would you want to get married? You're perfectly fine the way you are and the way things are. Why would anyone want to get married? Take it from someone who's been there and done that. Marriage is highly overrated. The way I see it, marriage in any situation is a tightrope walk, or rather a tightrope tango, as this picture suggests. And the chances of a misstep are already very high. But add to that mix the factor of mental illness in one or both of the partners, and the marriage is asking for serious trouble. I go so far as to say that it becomes a dangerous zone, not just for the two individuals involved, but for their children down the line. I know that Arjun did not like the idea of persons with mental illness being thought of as dangerous, but that is not my point. I don't think that they are dangerous. The situation is a dangerous mix. Now, why so much fuss around marriage? The problem is that we as a society have glorified marriage too much. It's as if marriage is the solution, the only way a person can be complete. In my opinion, it is marriage that needs to be demystified. Let me give you an example. When it comes to persons with a mental illness or disability, I personally know of many cases where the person concerned wasn't even thinking of or had no interest in marriage. It's the family that wants them married, that pursues the potential marriage partner or pressurizes the person with mental illness to get married. Now, what are the reasons from the point of view of the family? They, of course, want to avoid the stigma of finding out that they have a son or daughter with a mental disability. They think they fulfill their duty, get the child off their hands and their job. Thinking that marriage will cure them. Unfortunately, that the wife or husband would be able to change them. And they think that when children come along, they'll be the perfect, complete, happy family. Now, there are three possible most common scenarios in a situation like this. One is where the family and the concerned individual keep the truth of mental illness hidden from the other party. The second situation is where the individual himself or herself is not aware of his or her own mental illness. It could be a borderline personality disorder or narcissistic personality disorder, schizophrenia. And the third situation is where the mental illness develops or makes itself apparent as the person gets older. Now, obviously, the worst situation and the completely avoidable one is the first. Now, what is, the fate of such a marriage? The person with the mental illness and his family withhold the truth. There have been cases where the person is on medication but stops taking medication from the day he's married for fear that the spouse will find out. Can you imagine that? And of course, it's downhill from there. So, what happens to such a marriage? But let me rephrase that question. How many failed marriages cite mental health issues as the cause for breakdown? Now, not surprisingly, research in this area is scattered and scarce because this is a taboo area. But a study conducted in 2011 across 19 countries found that mental illness increased the likelihood of divorce by up to 80%. That is a pretty staggering figure. Now, let me paint a picture for you. Let's say a woman gets married. She suffers from a personality disorder or schizophrenia or narcissistic personality disorder, but maybe she's not, aware of it. Maybe it was not clinically detected, or maybe she has an idea, but, nobody wants to reveal it, right? So she portrays her best self before marriage. She gets married. She has children. Soon it's a dysfunctional family. Children are affected. And both, they're affected both because of the issues with her mental health and parenting, and also because the chances that a child may carry the strains of that mental illness are quite a possibility. All right, so what are we looking at here? It's a vicious circle, and the cycle is likely to carry forward well into adulthood and into the next marriage if the child with the mental illness, who is now grown up, decides to get married. See, when it comes to children, I can tell you as a mother that even in normal circumstances, parenting has its own challenges. As a parent, I have often questioned my own sanity. Now, take a parent with a clinically diagnosed or worse still, undiagnosed mental illness. And can you imagine the pressure not only on the marriage, also on the children? Let me show you what research and a very wide study of children with parents whose one or two parents suffered from a mental illness, what did they reveal? They revealed that they experience a strained relationship with their parents, especially the one with the mental illness. They felt emotionally disconnected. They had to take on the role of the caregivers. Sometimes they had to play the role of the parent because one of the parents was like a children. They had to be more mature and more responsible. They had to grow.
Now, around 2 minutes left for you.
Sure. And they, of course, had a high risk of carrying the illness genetically or environmentally. Now, when it comes to persons with physical disabilities, and I'm glad that Arjun talked about it, I would have to say it is different. See, I know of so many cases where two persons with similar or different physical disabilities have a meaningful marriage together. They often balance and complement each other because one person's competence in one area may make up for a disability in the other person's life. So there it's about an understanding, a mental and intellectual choice. But when it comes to persons with mental illness, it's a whole different ballgame. The question of mental and intellectual compatibility and understanding does not arise. The issue is the mental illness or disability. Where is the question of mental balance in the relationship? At least one, if not both the parties, will have to take fall damage in such a marriage. Now, let me give you another scenario. You may ask, what about cases where someone knows the person with mental illness well, perhaps has known him for a long time, is well aware of his mental disability, but loves the individual dearly and chooses to marry him or her? What then? Well, you only need to look around you or read a few chicken soups for the soul or read literature or movies or real life stories on the internet to know. It's almost predictable. The well-intentioned lover marries her beloved knowing full well that he has bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. She promises to stand by him and nurture him and help him through it. And what happens? No matter how sincere her efforts, the marriage almost always falters and crumbles. And worst of all, there are kids in the picture now, and dysfunctional behavior and trauma issues and custody battles. A tightrope tango over a valley of flames. What else do you expect? Now, I'm reminded of Tennyson's words, and some of you may think and believe that it is better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. Really? Ask someone who's been married to a person with a mental illness what it's like to be walking on eggshells all the time, dealing with flying monkeys, combating suspicious and delusional behavior, bending over backwards to please and appease, and yet there is no peace. The mental strain of having been in a relationship like this, the trauma, the damage is often irreversible. So don't tell him that it's better to have loved and lost. He knows better. He knows that never will win the best scenario. I'm so to reiterate and wrap up, this is what I firmly believe. Marriage is not the be-all or an end-all of existence. When it comes to persons with mental illness, the important thing is for us to be aware and accept that treatment, care, compassion, and a stable home environment is what the individual needs and not marriage. Timely treatment of the illness and sensitive treatment of the issue and not marriage is the way forward. Now, I've offered my opinions in the spirit of a healthy debate, and I hope it will be taken that way. Thank you for listening to me. Over to you, Dr. Ravindra.
So, Muruna, very well. I mean, clearly the audience are quite liking your presentation because I could see in the chat messages. So yes, very well presented. And now for the rebuttal. So now I'm going to invite Dr. Soumitra Patare from the FOR team to give forth his arguments.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me to speak, and thank you, Runa, for that brilliant obfuscation of the entire issue. John F. Kennedy said very long ago that the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. And I think we need to keep that in mind. What are we talking here today? We are not talking about some mythical, hypothetical group of people whose rights should be protected. We are talking about protecting the rights of people like you and me. because at the end of the day, mental illness affects every family in the land. 1 out of 4 of us will someday have a mental health problem. So we are not talking about mentally ill people. We are not talking about people is not required. We want to create a society where the disabled are not needed. We want to create a society which in many ways is the perfect idea of society that the Nazis tried to perpetuate in the 1930s. And that is where the denial of the right to marry comes from. It has got nothing to do with functioning. And I'll tell you why. Millions of marriages in this country end in divorce every year. Not even 1% of them would have mental illness as the cause. Does that mean we start saying nobody should get married? Do we demand that children, before having children, parents should have some certificate for parenting? 1/3 of children in this country suffer physical and sexual abuse. Does that mean their parents are unfit for parenting and they shouldn't be having children? Because if you use that logical argument and carry it forward, that is where it takes us to. We've always used this this argument which was put forward by Runa, which is that why would you want to marry? It's such a terrible thing. That's an argument which has always been used whenever discriminated groups have asked for their rights. Oh, why would you want to recite everything in Sanskrit? It's a very difficult job. Even we don't like it. So, this is an argument which is, as I said, obfuscation. This is getting away from the point. The issue is that if some people have a certain right, then all people should have that right. There's also this whole issue about mental illness and it ending in divorce. We did some research and the papers are available. We did some research of 15 years of cases filed for divorce on the grounds of mental illness in the Pune Family Court. And this is like a huge long period. What did we find? What we found is that the predominant majority of those cases are filed by men against women, when actually the incidence of severe mental health problems like schizophrenia is twice as common among men than in
1 minute left.
Yeah, thank you. These the arguments made for divorce were things like, she does not make tea for my parents when they come to visit us. No medical certificates were attached. So what I'm trying to say is that the right to marry or the denial of the right to marry is also a gendered persecution. It is about denying women certain rights that give them their place in society. And really, take the right to vote. People say people with mental illness should not be able to vote. There's a lot of research which shows that people with mental illness vote for the same people that you and I vote for. Okay, there is no difference. People with mental illness vote, and it's the same. So if you think they're going to make bad choices, you're making those same bad choices. And it's very similar with the right to marry. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop here and hand over to Jervis.
Thank you, Soumitra. Very well put. Yes, Jervis, now this is you. And just a quick, although I've sent all the messages, after Jervis's rebuttal, then it's requested for all speakers to put their cameras on and be on together. Go ahead, Jervis.
I'd like each of you to imagine something. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine you're 13 years old, and out of the blue, a man or a woman falls madly in love with you, and you fall madly in love with them. Now, despite the world screaming at you saying, this is nonsense, you still fall in love. And 24 hours later, both you and your lover are removed, not just from reality, but also from this world. Now, if this was something that happened to any of us or people that we know, we would say, oh, such a tragedy. Oh, how could these kids have done something like this? Couldn't the parents have intervened? Such a shame. Dr. Ravindra, Dr. Sumitra, Dr. Arjun, my co-panelist, Ms. Runa, ladies and gentlemen. This story is not one that is so far removed. As a matter of fact, it's a story we all know the world over, despite whatever religion, culture, race you belong to. You can relate to this story because this story is about Romeo and Juliet. It is in fact hailed as the icon of lovers across the world. Now, many of us would also say it's a classic example of being being removed from reality. My esteemed opposition panelists are doctors. They are respected men in their field. They are thought leaders in their profession. They are authorities in their own craft. They've been interviewed on national television and have scripted laws for the rights of the mentally challenged or mentally ill. And they deserve true applause for their outstanding work. They spoke about multiple points, about the hows, about the whys, about give people their right. We are not debating whether they have the right. The question is it right? Neither my fellow panelists, Una, nor myself are doctors. We have no fancy degrees. We only watch television and try to follow the law as much as possible. Married with kids, we have no bandwidth to pursue everything else. We're just everyday folk with everyday woes, compounded by money matters, mundane routines, and marriages. Just like 6.8 billion people around the world who are not doctors. But you see, everyday folk are not entirely equipped to deal with these situations. Not only do we not have the complete know-how, we also lack the practice to be able to live with this minute after minute, day after day. See, in the Times of India in November of 2019 had reported around 3,432 cases that exist in Goa of people diagnosed with mental illnesses. I'm certain that there are many more that are left undiagnosed. This should be our priority. Why? This is the reason we're having a debate today. The reason we're having this debate is to promote the fact that people with mental illnesses need to find help. We have great organizations like Cooj that help the world, that help people here to reach out and find help. And it's an important practice that all of us need to commit to be able to get people to that help. First, we need to have that before we can consider marriage being the next step. Until such time, it would be through everyone's behalf to move that off the table. We've heard now that marriages are made in heaven, but us mortals have to live through each minute of it, right? Now, not all marriages end up in divorce, but 100% of divorces are caused by marriage. Out of 7,727 divorces recorded as of 2020, this was reported in the Hindustan Times in Jan of 2021, an average of 22, which actually leads us to the fact that 22 divorces are granted per day. Goa's numbers stand at about approximately 10% of all marriages ending up in divorce. Because people are disillusioned by the fundamentals of long-term commitment and are unable to express their emotions, their lack of motivation to do jobs, their incapability of responsibilities, or in other words, something my wife would tell you about me. But jokes apart, these cause tremendous trouble and strain in any relationship, especially long-term ones, because marriages are based on trust. And people with mental illnesses often are not out of their own fault incapable of being able to bridge that gap with their partners. In extreme cases, also people with mental illnesses are prone to domestic abuse, sexual abuse, and frigidity as well, which is a deadly combination in any relationship. My opposition has said that multiple points. I'm glad that we're not looking actually at a perfect society. We want to have diversity. I agree with you. We should have that. But the question that we have to ask ourselves is, would each or one of us choose to be with somebody that has a mental illnesses, that has a mental illness? We are at a we are often at a disadvantage. Us lay people are often at a disadvantage because we lack the tools to be able to deal with that despite having the theory of how to. As I said, going through all these
Jarvis,
minute by minute, thank you, day after day, it does become a challenge. And that is one of the reasons why, in my opinion, people with mental illnesses should abstain from marriage until such time that they are able to find help that they require. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we should assist each of our fellow human beings, give them the help that they deserve, reach out to sources of help, organizations like Kuj and those that are around us, as men, and also many distinguished people that are in this room today who are practicing psychologists, who will be able to help ease us from here to help ease us from this particular situation to make things better. Now, the the Greeks had a very fantastic saying, and I'd like to quote Marilyn French, an American author, who says that love is insanity, and the ancient Greeks knew that. It's a taking over of a rational and lucid mind by delusion and self-destruction. Where you lose yourself, you have no power over yourself, and you can't even think straight. Some people call it love, and we are often clear about where that goes. We have a hard time establishing order in our own lives. Let us remember our own mortality, focus on being of service to others and getting people the help they need. Finally, establishing trust in our own relationships before we recommend others to do so. Let us love our fellow man and women, bring them to realize less of what they simply want, but more of what they actually need. Over to you, Dr. Ravindra.
thank you, Jarvis. So can I request all the other team participants to also put their cameras on, and let's have all the team members here. So I got Samitra. Yes, okay, that is nice. So the people who are looking after the technical aspects, if you can display all the team members, it would be really nice for the audience to see. Ah, yes, this is wonderful. So maybe if I actually put my video off, then the fourth speaker would be seen. There. Okay, no, I have to put it. All right.
I've been in the spotlight.
All right, there you go. So who wants to go first?
Well, I just wanted to say that this a lot of this is just prejudice dressed up as care and concern. Okay, there is no care and concern, because if we really cared and concerned for people, we would care and concern for respecting their wishes. Of course, people, somebody put a question saying, but mental illness should be disclosed. Of course, mental illness should be disclosed. I have no doubt about it. Any marriage which is founded on non-disclosure obviously does not work, and our laws also protect against that. Our laws say that you can ask for an annulment if the marriage was based on fraud. So that right is already protected. That's not the issue. The question and the issue is also not whether marriage is good for you or marriage is bad for you. There are lots of things that are good for us, bad for us. If the state doesn't interfere with that, the state doesn't interfere and say, well, drinking tea is bad for you. If alcohol is bad for people, tobacco is for people, maybe we should ban them, but we don't ban them. And especially in a place like Goa, we don't ban alcohol and tobacco. So there are so many things that are bad for us, are not necessarily where the state interferes and says ban it. At the bottom of this, don't let that people with mental illness do not have a right to marry. It's based primarily on prejudice. It's based on fear and prejudice and nothing else.
Well, I agree with Dr. Sumitra. Yes, everyone should have the right. Again, the point that we're trying to make and of course highlight here is not so much whether they should have the right. They should have the right, but it's the choice that they're making towards that right that's going to affect not just them, but the people they're involved with. And as my co-panelist Runa had said, when children get into the picture, that's that many more lives the ripple effect will percolate too. So we're not just talking about a spouse who has to deal with it, we're now also talking about children that have to deal with it. And of course, many distinguished minds in the room will also have that same thought process where when it comes to children, their formative years being with somebody that has a mental illness be more difficult than somebody that has not, and we don't have any data that proves that they could actually become stronger from it, or that they are more affected by it.
Well, I just rebut you very quickly on that. The issue is, as you said, about if you want to shift the goalposts and say, oh, it's not about a right, but about the choice, let's debate choice. The question is, choice is Mary Ackerman said that choice is the signature of our species. We make choices not because they're right or wrong. We make choices only because we are human and we need to make those choices. And sometimes we make wrong choices. And that's completely okay. And so if you stop choice, really that affects a lot of our rights for all of us. The second point you made was about children. There is no evidence other than prejudice which shows that children who grow up in families where one parent has a mental health problem are any worse off than children who grow up in families where no parent has mental illness. There is no evidence to prove that. What the evidence does prove is that dysfunctional families are bad. And many dysfunctional families are dysfunctional not because any parent has a mental illness. There are thousands and thousands of dysfunctional families without parent in mental illness. What are we going to do about those? That should then be an argument for saying that nobody should have children unless they've been certified to be functional. And is that the kind of society we want?
Well, certainly not. I mean, unless somebody wants to jump in to answer this question, we of course don't need the certification. But the thing is, there is a lack of ignorance, right? There is a large scale ignorance. There's a lack of knowledge on how to deal with these things, for lay people just like us, because we're not experts in this field. And yes, why we do, and I'm certain that you will also agree with one particular point, is that you need more experts in the field, right? Who are able to guide people through this particular stage.
No, we don't need, this is not about experts. This is not about mental health experts. This is about ordinary human decency. This is not about knowing anything about mental health. This is about saying what kind of society that we wish to have. Do we wish to have a society where all people have equal rights? Or do we wish to have a society where there are different levels of citizenship for different people? This has nothing to do with mental health expertise.
I'd like to jump in here in response to what Dr. Soumitra just said. You're right. I agree with you. This is nothing to do with mental health experts. This is about, everybody having their rights. This is about commonsensical, approaches to things like this. See, whatever I have said is not just based on my experience and the experience of friends and loved ones and people, real life people that I know. Now, Arjun had mentioned that the Article 23 of the UN Convention and Article 21 of the Indian Constitution kind of gives people the right to get married, to feel loved, to feel recognized and fulfilled. But the point is, you don't need marriage to feel loved, recognized, and fulfilled. I mean, I wish people would realize that. Now, when it comes to the question of do they have a right to get married, I don't think anybody is ever going to ban them officially from getting married. But I think, like Jervis said, it's a choice that you have to make, an intellectual and an informed choice and a decision that you have to make. So I'm not saying that people with mental disabilities are unfit for marriage, as Arjun said, but it's just the combination. You don't put a bull in a china shop. You don't put an alcoholic or a person who has a previous history of alcoholism in a bar in Goa, and you don't put a baby in a pool unattended. It's just common sense, and that is my point. The combination of a person with mental illness in a marriage is not a good idea at all.
If I could just come in there, I had two points. I think the first issue is that this debate seems, I think it's innocent attempt to mislead the debate, but I think it seems to be more about whether marriage is as a concept or as an institution is valid or not. And I don't think we're debating whether marriage or live-in relationships or other kinds of romantic relationships are the right forms of to be validated or to be felt loved, or so on and so forth. I think the question here is fundamentally one of autonomy and freedom. Is do I have that freedom to make the choice that I want to, and do I have that freedom to make that choice without somebody's interference in my life for me to be making that choice? And it seems to be what you're suggesting is that. And again, this is going back to what I said right in the beginning, that unfortunately, we still haven't been able to rid ourselves of false stereotypes about people with mental illness. There still seems to be this understanding or image that people with mental illnesses are incapacitated, that they're irrational, that they're almost less than human, to such an extent that they can't have relationships of love and care with other people, and that there must be other people who come and decide whether or not they should be making those very deeply personal and intimate choices. So I think the question really is not about whether marriage is valid or not, and I'm very happy to discuss that in a separate debate, and really discuss whether that's a good institution or not. And to be honest, I personally feel that marriage is probably not the best way. But that's my personal view. Where I make a distinction is that I need to respect the choice of any individual who makes that choice for themselves. And the second point is really about some of the critiques that you have raised are critiques which are again applicable to any kind of a marriage, right? We have marriages where there's domestic violence and abuse. We have marriages where the children are sexually abused. We have marriages where two partners are fundamentally incompatible. They just don't get along with each other, and they're unable to bridge the gaps, a phrase that Jervis used. Now, are we saying that every wrong decision that any person makes as far as their marriage or their personal intimate are concerned, because those wrong decisions, they should be prevented from making those decisions? If that's your argument, I can still accept it, as long as it's the same argument which applies to people without mental illness, along with people with mental illness. But I don't think that's the case you're making. I think the case you're making here is that even if people without mental illness make wrong decisions in marriages, that is justified. That's okay because they don't have mental illness. But if people with mental illness happen to make wrong decisions, right? And we make wrong decisions all the time. That is unacceptable, because we believe that if a person has a mental illness, they're somewhat less than human.
Can I quickly add a point here, which is that I think the real issue is not whether marriages are good or bad, and whether marriages are a way of going ahead or not. I mean, that's like, as Arjun said, a separate issue. The question really is that whether people with mental illness have a right to marry or not. that also does not necessarily mean that somebody has a responsibility to marry them. Let's be very clear. Nobody is forced to marry a person with mental illness, because they have the right to decide who they wish to marry to, as much as people with a mental illness have the right to decide whether to get married or not. That's all we are arguing for, that people have the right to make choices, and people without mental illness have equally a right to make choices. The question arises, and Runa said this, and so I wanted to refute that. The question arises is because our law actually says that if you have schizophrenia or a severe mental illness, then your marriage can be annulled. So the law actually does interfere into what is a very personal and private decision based on no evidence of prejudice. I mean, on one hand, if we say mental illness is an illness, then what happened to the whole business of in sickness and health? I mean, that is what we talked about, isn't it? So if it is in sickness and health, then why should sickness like mental illness be grounds for divorce? That has never been adequately answered. In the Indian Hindu Marriage Act and also the Special Marriage Act, long ago, mental illness, venereal diseases, epilepsy, and leprosy were grounds for divorce. In 76, they took out venereal disease, they took out epilepsy, okay, but left mental illness and leprosy. Last year, they took out leprosy from there, but still left mental illness. Why should illness be grounds for divorce? I mean, that's the real question.
Well, perhaps one of the points that we could look at is, and I'm glad that you said it, is that the law does have a provision, in fact, where it comes to annulments based on a mental illness. And yet again, we are talking about the same. We are looking at, of course, the right to be able to marry. The right. We are all saying yes. I don't think anyone's stopping that, even including the right to get an annulment by virtue of that. So it actually does boil down to a choice of whether you choose that, despite the fact that there is that provision in the law, whether you're going to apply it or not, right? So it does boil down to the choice on one factor. On the other hand, when we are saying that, okay, between a physical illness vis-a-vis a mental illness, I think everyone would agree that, yes, it's often harder to diagnose. In many cases where mental illness comes into the picture, as opposed to a physical illness where you can walk into a hospital and then, of course, still get misdiagnosed at some points. But, there is maybe a different yardstick where that's concerned as opposed to this. And I'm glad that we're having this debate, because this does put the spotlight on these situations. And that's exactly what we're trying to highlight, that these are the situations that happen to everyday people.
Well, the law has grounds for divorce, and one of the grounds for divorce, for example, or annulment, is fraud, which means you were fooled, which applies across the board to everybody. Which can be applied to even people with mental illness. The law has other grounds for divorce, which is that there is that you're not able to perform the functions of marriage or whatever. What I'm questioning is, why have a separate ground which is only specifically focused on an illness? The same grounds could be applied to everybody. If somebody with a mental illness is unable to perform the functions of or duties of marriage, that can be grounds for divorce. Why should mental illness by itself be a grounds for divorce? And that is the real question. And it's all very well to say, oh, but nobody exercises the privilege in the law. That's not the issue. The issue is that once you have that in the law, what is the message you're giving out to society? The message you're giving out to society is that these are second-class citizens. The message you're giving out to society is that there is something fundamentally wrong with people if they have a mental illness. And that is the prejudice that you're spreading. So in many ways, a lot of the stigma in our society is spread by the state. It's spread by laws. That is, if you want to get rid of stigma, you have to get rid of these stigmatizing provisions of the law. Because otherwise you're just spreading more and more stigma by promoting discrimination. That was my point. Not whether, nobody should be forced to stay in a marriage. I believe that, yes, if people wish to divorce, they should be allowed to divorce. That's not an issue. The point is whether that should be, what criteria should that be based on, and whether it is uniformly applied to everyone, or whether it is selectively applied to a group which has been historically discriminated.
So we have final 1 minute left. This is the time for you to kind of say whatever you want to. Just 1 minute left. Does anyone want from the opposing team any final rebuttal? There, Una, go ahead.
I have so many things to say, but let me choose the one or two. You said that people should have a choice to marry the person they want, whether or not has a mental illness. The problem is, in most cases, the person is unaware that he or she is marrying someone with a mental illness, because the stigma to disclose that you have an illness is so high that people try to hide it. There is no full disclosure, there is not enough transparency, and I personally know of so many cases like this. Now, when it comes to the question of sickness and health, staying married, whether in sickness or in health, have you heard from people who have had to live with a person with a mental illness like schizophrenia, narcissistic personality disorder, or bipolar disorder? They say it's impossible to live with such a person. They say, I'm losing my sanity, my balance, no matter how hard I try and no matter how good my intentions. And when it comes to annulment, you said something like, why make a discrimination? Why set aside something like schizophrenia or certain mental illnesses as a cause for annulment? Now, the thing is, this person has gone in for an annulment or a divorce because of the problems he was facing in the marriage. The question of annulment would not have arisen if there was no severe mental illness. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Interesting, very interesting. Thank you, all the team members. This has been really stimulating. And now it's over to the judges to start calculating the marks, and we're going to see which team has managed to impress the judges. So while we await the judges to give their scores, I am going to invite audience participation, as in the sense audience has been fairly active on the chat box, and I'm very impressed by that. But I guess I will have time only to allow two. So I am going to randomly choose any two, but then obviously of those who raise their hands. So if anybody wants to say something, this is your chance. Put your camera on and raise your hand, and I will ask you there. So we have got Rajeshwari Raidu. Please go ahead and say what you want to say. Inviting you, please unmute yourself.
Yes, sir, got it. At the end, I see it's rights versus law, which prevails. Are we talking about the right, the human rights, and the law? So it's a choice for us to decide, and ultimately law prevails. Even if we are talking about rights, if the party goes to law, legally they do get divorce on this grounds. So I think here the human conscious, the rights should prevail, not the law. Thank you.
Right. So Rajeshwari ji is in the favor of the right. I think what you're talking about is right to marry. Is there anyone else? So let this not be a question to the team members, because I don't think they should answer the question. It would be more like for or against. If you want, if you have any comment, please, audience, you can come forward. I don't want to put the team members in that they have to answer unless they want to. Anyone else from the audience who would like to? I'm looking at any raised hands here. There were lots of participation in the chat box. So here is your chance.
Dr. Ravindra, if there isn't a volunteer, maybe you can choose a victim.
That would be unfair. I don't want to be the unpopular moderator here.
You'll be violating rights and choice.
Yeah. So otherwise, who is likely to be the most likely victim? The person who actually decided to make us come together on a Sunday morning. So that person is likely to be the victim, and probably we have our majority. So that victim better be careful. If there is no audience, then I'm going to.
Where is Peter? Where is Peter? He's missing.
Peter, have you signed in with some other secret name?
There you are, Peter.
There is. There is there. Yeah. Peter, you're on mute.
Yeah, hi everyone. I am just sending in the results. Just one second.
Oh, you're a judge. Oh, okay. Maybe I should be careful with you. No, we shouldn't upset the guy. Let him do his job.
Okay. So let him finish doing that. I'll probably sending me by WhatsApp text. So I will have a look at that. Again, but it was, I mean, my comments here, I mean, while we wait for the scores to come in, and since there is nobody else in the audience who's come forward, I'm going to take this opportunity for my comments, and it's not because I am a psychiatrist that I'm going to side with Soumitra, but it's an independent thing, and I'm going to twist the debate topic slightly in the sense that yes, when it comes to, there is no data, no official data which says that people with mental illness are unfit to marry, or mental illness, because most mental illness is also treatable. Nevertheless, I guess we should also have systems in place or mechanisms in place which support people with mental illness when they are in marriage. So systems which would support them be productive, or even the spouses of persons with mental illness, they should be supported. So that should be the focus of what stand we take. So I'm just waiting for the scores to come in. Peter, would you be sending the scores by message?
I'll send it to you right away. Just a moment.
So I'm hoping you're sending of all, or you're sending only yours.
I'll send you all. I'll send you the total of all.
Thank you. Okay. Does anyone from the judges want to say? I mean, Peter is busy sending the message, but Dr. Nadkani and Dr. Loba, I'm sorry to put you guys on spot, but this is an opportunity if you want to say something. Dr. Loba?
I would like to say, I know we're talking here about mental health and marriage, and I do know of people who were falsified. They were not given the information of the person's history, and the marriage ended in terrible situation. Now, being a music therapist for 35 years and working in mental health, and now working over in India in mental health, and because my husband was Indian, I have always felt half Indian. So my heart reaches out to these people who are married in false way. But I look at what Sumitra said very carefully, very wisely. I work with people with many disabled conditions, and the discrimination is absolutely terrible. You're not allowed to think of sex. You're not allowed to have partners. You're not allowed to get married. Will never work. Down syndrome, they are trying to eliminate Down syndrome children from being born. Now, the Down syndrome children I know have excelled in life. They are sometimes, if they've had the right guidance, the happiest people you can meet. And I know several who have married, and they are so proud, so happy. But they come to me and say, why don't they want us to be born? We're Down syndrome, we're happy, we're people. Why are they trying to stop us from being born? I also have worked in neurology for over 25 years. I see marriages that were very happy, very successful. One of the partners gets a very severe illness, and it can be devastating. So if it's a man, all of a sudden he's lost his livelihood. He can't do anything at home. Everything is done for him. He can't get out, he can't talk, he can't walk. The wife is left with everything. Otherwise, the man is left with everything, and the wife cannot do anything for herself. Now, we cannot predict. We're trying to predict here life, and you cannot predict life. And therefore, to say that we should marry and we shouldn't marry, as Dr. Sumitra said, this is pure discrimination. It's time we all grew up and started looking at the same self. It can be us. The people I've worked with never thought that they would be incapable of doing anything physically or mentally. And that's what happens to them. And then you come in as a music therapist and you help them step by step by step put their life back together again. And it can happen. So what we need is the right care from the very beginning. At the age of 12, we had a very dysfunctional family of 7 children, a poor family in Canada. Now, my mother looked at me when we were waving goodbye to my father going off to work one morning, and she turned to me and looked half at me, half at the sky. And she said, "Do you think your father might be schizophrenic?" Now, I didn't know what that meant, but I was so proud of her disclosing to me her concerns. Now, we lived with that all our lives. And when our mother died, the most important thing, whatever had gone on in our lives, was that we supported our father. We've all come through, all 7 children have turned out to be excellent, excellent parents, wonderful human beings. We learned a lot from him, how to care for other people. If we had left him, my mother said, if I leave your father, he will get worse and he will die. So at the same time, don't underestimate how the family can pull together, that it isn't just the carers coming in to help, it's the whole family. If we were never given any support. If you mentioned anything to do with getting support for mental health, my God, the house would have fallen down. So we had to rally together as a family. For years, we were dysfunctional, all trying to find our way. Where do we fit in to this situation with the father who is 1 minute the most loving, caring father, and the next minute a demon that you're terrified of? How do we handle this? And we were dysfunctional for years, but now in our older years, we have all come back together very strongly, full of love of each other and care. So all I would say is, with music therapy, if we come into these situations, we work with the individual. When the individual is on the development stage, we then start to integrate with the family. And you never impose what that family should do or what that individual should do. You begin to go together with them and allow. And so we should never underestimate the strength of people. We are looking at these people with weakness. These people are so strong in order to carry on. It takes great strength to survive in this world if you slightly dare to be different. So thank you very much for giving me a chance to blow off my mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lobo. Thank you. So I do have the scores now, and I will announce them in a minute. And I've also been told that there is a next program at 12 o'clock, so which is in 2 minutes from now. So I guess we will wind up, although I can see there were some hands raised. We're not going to have time for that. So the scores were out of 60, and out of 60, the Jervis and Runa's team scored 48, and Saumitra's team and Saumitra Arjun's team scored 51. So the judges have ruled in favor of Pro team. So the outcome is that yes, the debate has been that yes, the people with mental illness should marry. So I'm sure that the team which opposed, I mean, they have been they've been very sporty participants and have come forward to argue for the topic. They may have different personal views, you know, and just because they took that stand, we should not look at that as if they're supporters or not. Yeah. Okay. So here I'm going to invite Dr. Peter for one final comment, and then we close this. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, audience, for being part of this fantastic debate.
Yes, I'd like to thank Dr. Ravi and Saumitra and Arjun and Runa and Jervis for participating in this debate, which, as Chrissy had mentioned earlier, was something that it keeps coming up in our day-to-day clinical practice regularly, whether someone should marry or not marry, but get married. It's a whole range of issues that come up. But just to sum it up, I would like to say that marriages are all about relationships, and the relationships is about partnership. And there is no real right and wrong, and I cannot take a strong stand whether they should marry or they should not marry. But I think if the dynamics of that relationship can be fulfilled and can be equalized, or maybe not even equalized, but can be can fit, there can be like a lock and key fit where people can understand each other in spite of their disabilities. Like, we all have our issues, but we hope that the other person is able to fill those lacunae. So if this partnership can be built in, then I think a marriage can be successful. And we've seen it all the time with people with mental illness, but we've seen that these break down when this partnership is not on equal terms. So I just like to end up on that one note, and with a big thank you to everyone, all our speakers, and to all the participants and our judges, Abhijit and Dr. Margaretis. Thank you so much. Please stay on for the next session.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Peter. Thank you, Dr. Ravindra Agarwal. Thank you to all those that participated and were part of our debate team. It was absolutely riveting. I felt like if I blinked, I would miss something. And I realized that on each point, when someone said something, I was nodding all throughout. So a lot of different perspectives that came about, and a lot of take-home messages, and something that I would be able to use as a clinician as well. Thank you once again. Please do not go away. Please stay. We have a panel discussion on yet again a very important topic. However, before that, I'll give you a short 5-minute break to enjoy a video that we have made about our organization, Huge Mental Health Foundation, specifically the psychosocial rehabilitation program that began in 2005. Here is a short glimpse of the work that we do.
See the video? Hello?
Yes, we can, Dave.
Yes.
We can see.
Thank you.
Competition. We can't hear it anymore. Karaoke.
Who's it dancing around?
I'm pulling her.
No, but why? Who is she? Okay.
Okay, Dale, thank you. Thank you for that video. I hope you were able to catch a short glimpse of the work that we do at Cooj. I also hope I'm audible. I can't really see you back there. A lot of the rest of the work that we do at Cooj, you will also find on our Instagram page, on YouTube, as well as Facebook. We are Cooj Go Up. Please do go follow, become our friends immediately. Right? Let's move on to segment number 2 for today. The second segment is not a debate, it is a panel discussion with a particular topic that is very, very important to us. Again, a topic that hits home. It is one that comes and knocks on our door regularly. It is one that is asked to us by a whole bunch of people, and we also contemplate on the same. The reason that we came up with this topic, one, is because it is one that is asked to us. Two is also because Cooj began and has an employment training and integrated services program. It began in the year of 2017. And as the name suggests, the whole aim of this is to train, to allow apprentices to learn with the help of a mentor how to hold a job, how to undergo employment. We also have employment in Cooj as well. So for instance, we have clients that volunteer at our senior therapy center, which is the geriatric and the dementia program. We also have clients that have been trained and have been part of our staff team. They have been on a regular stipend as well. At the same time, we have a vocational therapy that is therapy center that is set up, which will help train various clients in different, based on their ability levels. Okay, so even if you're participating in only step 1, you will still be appreciated in the form of incentives. So with all of this, it allows for people, for our clients, people with mental illness, to have not only a sense of confidence, a sense of responsibility, but also have a sense of independence, and they can utilize their skills in a safe environment in order to get something back in return, maybe even a monetary benefit. That is why this question is really, really important to us. It is what we would like to know more about. And we thought, again, let's put it out there with some extremely learned speakers and see what they have to say. Gail, can you put me on spotlight, please? It's distracting. I can see everyone. Let me repeat the question to you one more time. Can people with mental illness be employed? Our moderator for this panel discussion is Dr. Sobhini. She is a psychologist and a psychotherapist. She is the HOD of the Psychology SNDT Women's University, which is where I studied. So she is my HOD. She authored 11 Marathi books in various areas of mental health. She has published over 70 research papers and book chapters in national and international journals and publications. She is the recipient of various scholarships, awards, including the UGC Research Fellowship, and she is currently working in the area of addiction prevention, particularly non-substance behavioral addiction of children and youth. And she holds a very special place in my heart. It's so good to have you here, ma'am. I'm going to quickly move on and also introduce the rest of our esteemed panel today. We have with us Dr. Thatte, the founder, member, trustee, and clinical supervisor of the Institute of Psychological Health, IPH. More than 30 publications in the national and international journals to her name. She was awarded the Woman of the Year for her significant contribution in the field of mental health by Working Women's International. She has received a global award for excellence in quality leadership in mental health care from World CSR Sustainability in July 2018. She is also the chairman of ETHICOS, the Independent Ethics Committee for Evaluation of Drug Trials since 2011. Welcome, Dr. Patel. I am so honored to have you here today. Thank you so much for being with us. Our next panelist today is Dr. Mangala. She is the Assistant Director, Media and Communications at Schizophrenia Research Foundation, SCAF, Chennai. She developed a digital online course for sensitive reporting on mental health issues for journalists, part of Essence project partnering with Sangat Bhopal. She actively is involved in organizing events to promote education and awareness and participates in television and radio talk shows focusing on mental health issues. She is one of the key organizers of Frame of Mind, a film festival on mental health, first of its kind in India. She has published papers in peer-reviewed and index journals. We are so glad to have you here with us today, Dr. Mangala. Thank you for being here. I will move on to my next panelist, Mr. Sandesh, the Director of Cadimum's Group and Institutions. Not only is he a promising entrepreneur of the organization, he is passionate and unwavering in providing mental health care with international standards. With his innovative strategic methods, modern thought, and skill to envisage the healthcare scenario, he brings a novel outlook to the organization. Under his guidance, Cadimum's Group is entering new frontiers, not just professionally, but also geographically, establishing mental health services in the UAE and GCC countries, and also expansion of services in India. Thank you so much for being with us, Mr. Sandesh. Thank you so much. We will now move on to our next and final panelist for today, Mrs. Mokashi. Mrs. Mokashi has been a caregiver for the past 35 years. She had attended a number of counseling sessions and workshops for caregivers at IPH 2002. She was inspired by the work of professionals and as a moral responsibility wanted to do something for the cause. Initially, she got involved in the support group activities and later in Tridal. Currently working as coordinator of Tridal's Schizophrenia Rehabilitation Workshop and coordinator Sarhad, support group for Shubhankar's caregivers at IPH. She is also the trustee of Tridal Foundation. Thank you so much for being with us, Mrs. Mokashi. Thank you everyone, and over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chrissy. I think this is a great pleasure for me to be back again with the coach team. We have a lovely, long-standing relationship, and I remember the times when and I'm so happy about that. I remember Dr. Peter from back then. So thank you, Dr. Peter Castellino, for having me this afternoon with all of you. Janet, remember, who can forget my little Christy? Christians, a lot of clarity of thought and speech, and I see all of that today as you presented all of us. So thank you, Chrissy, for that. I also see some of my current students, Chrissy, for your reference. I can see people like Shivani, Arima, Ashwini, Hannah. All of these people seem to have joined our program. So that's great. I'm sure they'll carry the message of Coach back to the university and to their friends. So we'll straight away start with this panel discussion. We have less time and a lot of people, and all these 4 people come with huge experience and lot of work done in this field, which can never be done justice in just an hour. So I will just tell the audience a quick outline of how I plan to go. I would just like to ask 2 to 3 questions to each of these panelists, one at a time. Give them a little time to answer, because I don't think it's fair to hurry people when they've got so much to bring to the table. So the format changes, friends. In the first half, we had a debate, which was a very hot back and forth, and I enjoyed listening to it, and a lot of sparring of thoughts. Whereas here, I think you all are going to be looking at more of addition. more of thoughts added on to somebody who has already said something. And so I'm not going to interrupt if, say, one of the speakers wants to take over from one of the other speakers and add something. If you just raise your hand, I'll just come over to you. So my role is a very minimal role. It's a very comfortable role because I've got so much of talent and so much of experience over here. I don't have to add a thing. Dr. Mangala, can we have your video on so that the audience will be able to see all four of you and then listen to you? And Dr. Mangala, I would love to start with you. So I think everyone can just turn on their audio as soon as I ask you the question. So I want to start with Dr. Mangala because I have always felt that there are a handful of institutions in India, and fortunately the number is growing, where the person who is leading the team is a psychiatrist. Many of the people in the team are psychiatrists, and yet there is a huge thinking beyond the biomedical model. And I think SCARF is one of the organizations that truly represents this, as does COOJ, as does IPH, as does so many other excellent organizations all over India. But we all do look to SCARF for the excellence that you bring to your work. So can you just begin the whole discussion by talking about why this going beyond the biomedical perspective to a much broader psychosocial, spiritual, cultural perspective has helped? And in what way do you think it helps employment in the of all the patients, all the clients who have come through SCARF?
Thank you very much, madam, and good morning to everybody. First of all, I would like to thank COOJ for inviting me for this wonderful panel discussion. I think it's a very important issue that needs to be discussed, and it is a challenge we face every day in our clinical practice. And thank you, ma'am, for that wonderful word about SCARF. Yes, SCARF, when it began in 1984, was started with a prime aim of rehabilitation, because when our founder, Dr. Sharada Menon, when she retired as the director of the Institute of Mental Health, one of the oldest mental hospitals in Chennai, she felt, there were a lot of people there who were not able to go back to their homes because of various reasons. And definitely there are people who don't deserve to be in an institution, and at the same time, they are unable to join their family. So there was a need, there was a vacuum there which needed to be filled, with a place where persons with mental health issues who do not need to be institutionalized can be kept, can be treated, and can be helped to get reintegrated into the society. And it was with that vision that began. So in the initial time, it was more a respite care for persons with very serious mental health issues. I think that was the time when people with long duration of illness were starting to get medical treatment. So we didn't expect any dramatic or drastic improvement in their condition. So all that we were looking for at that time was, will they be manageable? So, and for that, it started off as a daycare center where they can be just kept occupied. So they just have a routine. They come from home, stay there for a few hours in the day, and just spend the day happily and go back. That by itself was bringing a lot of relief for the family, and also bringing some improvement in the patient's behavior and their ability to interact with others and follow a routine in a structured way. And then slowly we thought we should start keeping them in some kind of activity, and then very small things like, making paper bags or chalk pieces, because definitely we still had blackboards in school back then, and people used chalk pieces to teach students in classes. So making chalk pieces became an activity that they were involved. And I remember the person who used to run the training center then, he used to take the chalk pieces to the schools, and try to explain to them this was made by persons with mental disabilities. And once that is mentioned, the amount of humiliation that he used to experience in the places, there are a lot of things that way. And despite all that, the constant knocking at several doors, constant mention of the persons with disabilities being productive in some way, it's definitely made a huge impact. And now gradually we have reached a stage where we are able to talk to employers more easily. More people are willing to accept patients as employees, and we have definitely come a long way from when we started.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mangala. I think that was a wonderful and very crisp description of a long and arduous journey which has been so successful. And you've already tackled the issue, which I will come back to later, and all of you, of destigmatization and of taking away the fear of the idea of even employing a person with mental illness, and to get to understand that they can work beautifully and there won't be any issue at all. I'm very happy you mentioned Dr. Sharda Menon. We all look up to her hugely, and we eagerly look to the oration which you have for SCARF conferences every year. I still remember every icons, and I really missed icons last year because of the pandemic. Now with this year, we'll attend it online. But I always remember Dr. Sharda Menon. As soon as I read, she will hold my hand and she will say, how's Dr. Anand? How's Dr. Shubha? How's everyone at IPH? She's amazing. And I think that personal touch, which all of you have brought, is something everyone else, I'm sure, is going to actually talk about all over again. So I think it's very important that Dr. Mangala has highlighted this point of people who do not need to be institutionalized, living in their families, being happy at an activity center, and learning how to prepare themselves for a vocation. I think here is the time for a little data perhaps, and I will come now to Mr. Sandesh, because sir, yours is a huge and a very renowned organization with various different platforms that you work from, neurology, psychiatry, many others. So what kind of information can you give us? What is the kind of patient percentage that you see of people who are recovered, people who are employed, that have gone through your portal over all these years? Mr. Sandesh.
Thank you, Dr. Anuradha. Thank you, Dr. Anuradha. Thank you. I think I should acknowledge Kuj and the rest of them for putting this together. Quite excited to be on this panel. I'm sure we would bring in a very different value and a perspective in the discussion today. I think individually, I look up to all of you all, known of your organizations in one way or the other in spaces that we've worked. And also, I'm going to be a person noting down if there are cases that we could anyway directly or indirectly add value at the end of this conversation. So coming to the question, what you asked me, Dr. Anuradha, yes, we are into multiple centers. We today arguably cover the whole spectrum or gamut of mental health offerings, a range of offerings from preventive and promotive mental health, as what we call as Mind Talk. The idea of having Mind Talk is we want to be a neighborhood, a center where a person could walk in and say, I have an issue, problem, or an illness. And eventually in the last 3-4 years, Mind Talk has been there in schools, Mind Talk has been there in corporates. We have a Mind Talk school mental health curriculum. We have a Mind Talk corporate employee wellness programs that are running, where we have about 10,000 employees. I'll come to that as part of the other aspect. And then what we're always known for, crisis, first treatment, crisis mental health. We operate that out of Kadabam's hospital. Neurology and physiotherapy, the neuro rehab kind of support and play a very critical role in especially the Kadabam's hospital offerings of ours. And then comes to our residential care. You know, that's where we originated from. I'm a family, we are as a family who founded this because of my aunt, who's been the inspiration. And today we have about 70 to 80 qualified mental health professionals. We're talking about 50 psychologists, about counselors, and about 25 clinical psychologists, and about 15 psychiatrists as a team today. Now that brings us to the programs that we run and what are the data points. So on an average, we look at from our centers for persons with psychiatric illnesses, especially in the residential programs alone, we reintegrate anywhere between 35 to 40 individuals. So in this number, we look about, let's say, 30% of them comfortably, 30 to 40% of them going back and picking up a job. right? They're either coming from a background where they were working and they've taken a break, they had a professional responsibility or a role that they were on. Then put together a short-term rehab program and something that has worked. And I'll also tell you something that has not worked for us. Something that started to work is people who came to us were not looking for allied jobs, and they were people looking for white-collar jobs. So it became necessary for us to partner with an online learning platform like Udemy. We tried Coursera, we tried the others. Today, we have a partnership with Udemy, where a recovering individual, as part of his program in the last few months, can sign up for any course and we have a direct access to the facilitator. So this started to help us. And the core idea was that, can we do something with their CV, right? Can we help them out with their CVs? So these again are not with nature of illness that is chronic, who have been functional, who have not held on to recent most jobs. And this is a learning that we took from our supported education program. I don't want to talk too much about our supported education today, because the idea is to talk about employment and schizophrenia. Then this is my focus area, in which I've had a couple of pitfalls, failures, and really a partnership as well. So this is that bit. Now, what do we do to the rest 70%? So there are people with, while we're reintegrating another handful of individuals, we are exploring, and have been exploring for the last decade and a half, we've been trying to do supported employment programs. So in these supported employment programs, in a year, we're able to employ about 20 to 25 of them. We're trying to see how we can increase this number. So these are individuals who work on campus, go out of campus, and then still come back and reside there, but are with histories or nature of illnesses chronic. Not necessarily all of them are schizophrenia, but then the primary diagnosis, about 30-40% of them are with schizophrenia there. But the goal that we're working with right now is to look at a platform where the corporates, I started to believe that this conversation has to be at an organization level. We're trying to see if we can start talking to them for internships, for apprenticeships, for trainings, is something that we're exploring, because we see over 1,500 individuals coming into our outpatient services, anywhere between 1,500 to 1,700 of them coming in there, and can supported education and employment be moved in here. So these are aspects I would love to touch on them as we go along, but I'm not sure if these were the data points you're looking.
Yeah, no, I think this was very useful, and it's very heartening to know that, this is the trajectory that we are seeing for people with mental illness who have recovered and who are moving on into a field of employment. I think Mr. Sandesh has highlighted this whole aspect of preventive and promotive mental health. Importantly, at IPH2, we always talk about distress and development, and how the next stage is important for people to move into. And I really liked his emphasis on the role of new learning and of internships. And I think Dr. Thatte is the best person to talk about this, with a vast experience, initially in a structured teaching hospital setting like KM Hospital, Mumbai, and now, of course, more than 30 years at IPH. Dr. Thatte, what I would like to ask you about is the conception of Tridal. Chrissy introduced the concept of Tridal when she talked about your introduction. And I want to know, how was Tridal visualized? Was it seen as a step towards employment? How did the idea of sheltered workshop go into such a buzzing activity center that it is today? Ma'am, you're muted. Can you take away your mute? Can you turn on your mic? Thatte ma'am.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. And thank the organizers for giving us opportunity to showcase the work which we are doing as Sami on our own small scale. I'm sure it is most of the audience, because we expect such kind of Tridals to mushroom place, all the districts and everywhere, because that is the need of the day. As you asked, we never started with any employment in our mind, certainly not. Because we, as IPH started in 1990, with zero funding and 4 professionals at China. And our main aim was destigmatizing mental disease. That was our main focus. And along with our many other programs and our regular OPD and all that, this idea came up because like other programs, which are all stemmed out of the need expressed by the society. Similarly, this also was out of need expressed by the caregivers. So the patients used to attend our outpatient department, the parents used to come. And those parents used to come and tell us, my boy is at home, who is 30 years old, not working, and last 10 years he is not stepping out of the house. What can we do for them? Why not start something where we call these patients? We don't call them patients, we call them Shubhartis. Shubharti is the person who is walking on the path of wellness. Those patients, Shubhartis, to come over. And we decided, let's call them once a week. And some professional and some caregiver will sit with them. Let's talk about what they can do, how we can decide to get them out of the house. So it was mainly for social skill, mainstreaming them in society some way or other. Employment was not on our agenda at that time at all. So small group of 8, 10 such patients started initially only once a week in 2003. Then we started talking to them, explore what they will like to do. First important thing was to make them feel comfortable in front of strangers and talk to them. And after a few weeks, ready enough to come almost every day. Then we started calling them every day. Obviously, there were 2 caregivers that time and 10 patients who used to take. We wanted more professionals to be involved in that. It was difficult for IPH professionals that make them attend such program. So initially we started with few volunteer professionals and caregiver volunteers. And then we decided what activity can we start. Because most of these people have not worked anywhere. They had their education degree some 10 years back, 15 years back, but they have not done anything. So then we decided why not start with some small activity by which they will be involved and which will generate at least some income of that. Because money is the biggest motivator. Even if they don't think about money that way, but I have earned something today. Initially, we only cut vegetables. Somebody will go in the morning to the main market and buy my vegetables in bulk. And the patients will come in the afternoon, they will sit, cut vegetables, wash and pack them in kilo or quarter kilo packets. We wanted them to have the feel of selling it. There was one shop who allowed us a table outside their shop. And then we had to show them through role play how to stand there, how customers are going to ask you questions, how to answer those questions. So this is something we started in a very small way. Slowly we started adding up more difficult, activities which were related to more seasonal. Like for example, during Diwali time, painting the other Diwals, or during Diwali time, making hanging lamps. During Rakhi time, make Rakhi. So such activities we started, and we found all of them started slowly taking it. Now this is not as fast as I'm talking to you. A long time to make them feel comfortable also. Because many a time they would sit with each other for 1 hour without exchanging a single word also. And we had to initiate them to make conversation with others, to tell them, these are your friends and you are going to work with them. So now we have reached in which we can proudly say that we have 40 patients are coming to us every day from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. This activity is completely manned by caregiver volunteers and non-caregiver volunteers. Non-caregiver volunteers are also important. Now, what we saw is the way we started growing, the activity started growing. 2003, when we started, we were in a rented place. Obviously, in rented place, there is limitation because other residents or the owner, they don't want patients to come there. They always feel that these people will create problems, they will become aggressive, they will do some harm to society. But actually, our experience shows that from 2003 till today, none of our patients has ever created such problem for the people around. In 2008, when we shifted to our own place, and then we started increasing the activity. We bought some grinding machines, we were grinding mills, and then we increased our activity.
Ma'am, I'll stop you there because the next question I would like to ask you about, leads to this. Also, your voice is coming little soft, so if you can bring the mic a little closer in the next section, if you can just adjust the mic, we'll be hearing you better. It's coming a little low volume. Okay, I'd like to move on to Asmita. I think Asmita is a very, very important member of this panel today, and thank you, Asmita, for being here. She's been an amazing mainstay for Tridal. I can never hesitate to say how important she's been, like a center pin sort of for the whole activity. So with you, Asmita, the question I have for you is that you had a kind of dual role to play. Okay, there was a involvement being a family member who's also a caregiver and volunteer for IPH and an activist in a sense, talking about all this destigmatization and training of volunteers, and this balancing of the personal and the volunteer role. That's what I'd like you to talk to us about, because I think both add to your strength. And Tati ma'am has very nicely outlined the role of a person who is a caregiver and a volunteer, and a person who's volunteering and may not have a person with mental illness at home. So Asmita, question for you is, how do you think both these roles added to your strengths in your work for IPH, and how did you manage to keep it apart? Put on your mic, Asmita.
Unmute.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Yeah. First of all, let me thank you all for be a part of this discussion in front of all you. What to say? Big people, I would say, or the people with whom I would definitely like to be get associated with. Basically, yes. Actually, I feel working with Tridal is a sort of solace to me. I don't know, but it is like, I really like, or I really love to be in with the company of Shubharthis. Actually, even though they are 45 plus people, us, they are our kids. So maybe while talking about them, I may refer them not as a Shubharthis or not as a patient, but as a kids. So please bear with me, because that is how we usually talk, because we are just like a family. So basically, when I joined Tridal, as Madam said, even Tridal is, it has come out of because caregiver wanted something for the non-functioning Shubharthis. That is how it started. So it was out of the need. So basically, when I started being there, that time I really feel is like it's my home, but with less responsibilities. Because at home, I am the only caregiver, or I am the primary caregiver. When I come to Tridal, that time there are so many other volunteers, and even the madam or professionals are also there to guide us. So I don't feel that the entire responsibility lies on me. So it is more comforting in Tridal than when I am giving care to my husband. Actually, my husband is Shubharthi, though he doesn't need care all the time. So it was more comforting to be at Tridal. And another thing is that as I joined Tridal in around 2002, and before that, it was just that my caregiving was just the trial and error. Means like, whatever my natural instincts used to tell, I used to do, to apply some strategies, and then I used to discard it. The first time I got the psychoeducation or actual scientific information about illness and about how the communication should be, or what must be going on through the minds of Shubharthis, was when I did my psychoeducational workshop, which was held at IPH. And after that, my I would say insightful journey as a caregiver has started. And I already had that natural instinct. I always has that. I was very keen in observing my Shubharthi, and I used to see like there are certain behavioral changes. I used to see that which if they are not addressed at the proper time, they used to lead to the relapses. So means whenever I used to see some behavioral changes or typical facial expressions, so I had my own cues, and those cues had helped me while handling Shubharthis at Tridal. Because it was a guideline कि हाँ, if certain person tend to behave in certain fashion, it may be that he or she is under stress, so there is a need of intervention. So now after getting the psychoeducation, I was more equipped. My skills as a caregiver has sharpened. So I would say that working at Tridal is not the additional burden, but it was like a blessing for me, because I was able to handle my own Shubharthi in a better fashion.
I think that's an amazing answer. Yeah, go ahead, Asmita. I don't want to interrupt you. Yeah.
No, it's okay. And after that, actually, my relationship with my husband has improved a lot. I started understanding him in a better fashion. Our communication channel has built, and it was easy for us to pick up the early signs of relapses. And whatever experience I had with my husband, I started using the same experience with my kids and it really had helped. And then I used to pick the cues faster. Then we used to talk to them. We used to talk to their psychiatrist. We used to talk to their parents. And we could avoid the relapses. I feel we could avoid the full-blown relapses. Maybe there would be little bit ups and downs and all. But yes, it was really a good thing that I am a part of Tridal.
Thank you so much for that very, very lovely answer. I think everyone is reacting emotionally also to it in the audience. The IPH, both of them, Dr. Thatte and Asmita, I think have highlighted this fact that when Tridal started, the idea was never to directly employ the people who were in Tridal. The idea was to slowly scaffold them through cognitive performances, through social skills, through emotional expression, all the steps which lead finally to employment. So I think they've highlighted that very beautifully. Our IPH team, including Dr. Anand Nadkarni, Dr. Avita, all of them have been very, very instrumental in doing this work. I think the voice of a caregiver in such a panel always rings strong and true, because these are life experiences which they are bringing to the forefront and sharing with everybody. And I completely agree with Dr. Thatte that these people who were facing the wall, not talking to each other, are today so vibrant. And I always see people like Dr. Satya and Asmita as a sort of very alert and very benign observer who's constantly watching over how well they are continuing to improve, and like Asmita said, to prevent relapse possible. I'm coming back to Mr. Sandesh now, because once again, a role of an organization like ADABAMS can be also very instrumental in policy building. So what's your philosophy vis-a-vis employment? You already started telling us a little bit about your collaborations with corporates and, whole internship planning. So how exactly, what is your view of being able to create this channel for persons with mental illness to get into employment, fruitful employment? It may not be very, very monetarily rewarding, like Dr. Satya said. It should make them happy. It should make them feel, that they have a fruitful life.
Sure. So Dr. Anuradha, for me, there are, like I said, for me, it's always three verticals. There are certain set of population who do not want, this is just for their psychological well-being, for them being valued for. So that's one set of population. For them, the easiest way that we have seen is to partner and to set up, the successful one is to set up stores for them, right? So from a confectionery shop to a trading store to, we have about 7 to 9 outlets right now which operate on Kanakpura Road. I would say about 3-4 of them are even making business value. So it is they who manage it, they who source it, they who sell it. Right? This is a model that that has been very successful. But the downside to a model like that is it's not scalable. It can employ only about 30-35 of them, which we have done just now. Right? For an organization like us who are having a lot of people coming in and going out, we feel we could do a lot more. Right? So now I'll come back to what we could do for those who come from a very let's say their backgrounds are their education background as a qualified individual. They may have not held on to a job for the last 5 years, 7 years. So this is a population that has been of very keen interest for me in particular, right? So we have internal clubs and groups that even as management, we are all part of these. So it's got clinicians and all of us. So we try to explore. In this, I should tell you that I've had a lot of pitfalls when I go up to a corporate and say, we want this kind of a job. The door is shut down at me. And they said, listen, it's not possible. They might be dangerous. They have their own understanding. So the workaround for it is we've, those who are extremely good have their CV, put it out to them. They get onto a job, right? So a scenario where somebody is able to hold on to a job for 1 year, 1.5 years, it's a well-spoken arrangement that they will not work 8 hours, they'll work 4 hours to 6 hours. This has worked in our favor. And another important area that we generally sensitize them is to the fact that there might be inconsistency that comes in. There might be a point where somebody wants to drop out and we will still handhold them. Not all of them are okay. So there have been dropouts. So so this being my scenario and these backgrounds, I wanted to strike off conversations with mental health, with the corporates around mental health. So the conversations were around mental health. The moment we had a preventive and promotive mental health programs for the corporates as employee wellness programs, as employee assistance programs, we started to realize that there are people with mental illness who've been working in their own organization, but not disclosed to the corporates. I mean, the percentage could be about 2% to 3%. And I'm telling this to you from a data point of about 10,000 corporate employees who are on our wellness program today. This put us at a better pedestal to negotiate and talk to them. I mean, if anybody wants to see it, this is what we did last year. It's a YouTube link of ours. Please feel free to see it, comment on it, and let us know. I'm just going to leave it in the chat box for all of you all to see. So these were aspects that we started off, which gave us some momentum to really strike off. So to me as an organization, this is what I believe. As a mental health fraternity, we all have to come together and talk about the fact that these people need organized spaces. I also found that placing a person with intellectual disability, developmental issues like autism, not particularly autism, like any other intellectual disability or developmental issues was a lot more, the acceptance was there, but they expected supportive work. So it comes to the serious psychiatric illnesses that gets a little challenging. And also because they come across saying that they don't look sick, they don't look ill, right? It does not show that we are doing an inclusive management. And then how do you talk about it? So this is what it is. So for me in particular, the go-to point is an organization level partnership and collaborating with learning institutions where the skills can be mastered. And things that work well is the supportive aspects. So the support aspects is to allow those individuals who want it for the psychological well-being, stipend them appropriately, partner with the communities is what works well. So this is what worked well. And this has happened after, I think, about 20-30 of no's and then finally got here.
Yeah, I think everyone's story is reflecting the same thing, that it's just been years of hard work, constantly put in. And I come back to Dr. Mangala with that question. We have a lot of nice comments in the chat about talking of provisions in the organizational sector for people with mental illness, the sector becoming more inclusive, and people are also talking about how they teach certain activities like juggling, etc., which can improve, the cognitive functioning of people with mental illness. People have acknowledged my statements about Sharda Menon, great lady. So thank you for all that, the chat inputs. The question for Dr. Mangala is actually about scarf and now, because I think you've been with scarf for a long time in your own capacity. You have done so much for the media vertical, and still doing so much. So what kind of experiences have you had in the locality, in the community, for encouraging employment? Because Mr. Sandesh told us how sometimes there is a block in people's minds.
I think when we talk about work, our philosophy is anything that somebody is engaged in productively and is very happy doing it, and it definitely conquering their self-esteem, that can be considered work. It need not necessarily be paid employment. So anything that keeps them occupied and engaged and happy is work. So for someone who has been very negative in symptoms, and sitting at home completely unproductive, even the change from that to coming every day out of the house to a daycare center and spending a few hours there can be a big achievement for him and the family. And not everyone really needs support from us for getting employment. When we are talking about employment support, we are talking about those people with the most severe form of illness, that especially in schizophrenia or even severe OCD and bipolar disorder. Having said that, with women, I think the focus will be in training them in domestic chores. So even in the residential facility, we make sure that women who are admitted there in the residential facility are definitely encouraged to take part in some kind of domestic chores. It can be simply cutting vegetables though there are staff members, we make it a point that the women who are admitted, especially for short term, definitely get trained to do some kind of domestic activity. And we encourage them to wash their clothes themselves, because these are all the things that the family actually expects from them. And when the next thing is keeping their surroundings clean. I mean, one small room where they are staying, that needs to be cleaned by themselves. It is this kind of training which it goes a long way, because this helps in the person being accepted better, where her role is to perform the duties of a good housewife, cook, clean, and manage the house. I think she's made productive, and we have achieved our goal there. When we talk about other people, there are several ways we can help. Most families are able to find a job for their wards themselves, which is a fact. For example, there are family establishments, or we encourage them to talk to relatives and friends in the neighborhood, especially small shops, especially to pharmacies or a grocery store which is run by a neighborhood person, will be more accommodative to keep a person with a mental health disability, because he has seen this person grow in the locality, know him pretty well, and there is some amount of love and care that he can show and accommodate this person despite his idiosyncrasies sometimes. So that way, I think we have helped a lot of families to identify a proper employer. And once they are able to sustain in that kind of a job for a few months, their confidence definitely goes up, their performance improves, and they are able to move on to better jobs or different jobs, whichever they are able to find. But one major problem here is, in recent times, we see more people who have better education, people who have graduated in a college or engineering or double degrees and all that. it's a big challenge for us to make families to understand that they may not be able to get jobs matching their qualifications given their cognitive disabilities, which, dignity of labor, I think, it's a big issue when it comes to Indians. So we have a tough time when we try convincing families to make them accept that their ward may have to do a job that is not on par with this qualification. Actually, this is something we face even in ACAT Center. When anybody who comes in with a lot of cognitive disabilities, we try starting them with simple tasks like, we used to get pamphlets which needs to be folded, what we call a track folding. Those are not jobs which are very cognitively exciting, but then it definitely makes you improve your concentration. You're able to sit and focus in the task for some time. And then the paper covers and paper bag making. We used to get very angry remarks from patients and families. He is an engineer, he's an MTech from the US, and you are making this kind of a job, And in fact, one engineering graduate, he was so angry. He said, I was taken to NANS and they made me make ice cubes. You think this is what I learned in my tech, you expect me to do that. They are very, very angry about kind of things. So these are the challenges we need to address. And over a period of time, families accept the reality and they're able to settle down for not on par jobs with their sons or daughters' education. And we have several instances where we were able to encourage families to start work units for their children. In fact, one of my clients, his father started his textile showroom just to rehabilitate his son. But now he is not able to close it down because the business is roaring. So the son is definitely contributing. The father has trained him so well in all the aspects of running the textile showroom, whether it is buying things or maintaining a proper account, everything, and going to the bank and handling. The son can do everything, but still the father is around to take care of him. We have families which have invested in making a paper plates and paper cup making unit. This person was attending the VTC for training in this, and then the father decided to invest at home, and they are doing it on their own. So families actually play a bigger role than all of us put together in the process. And we also had a lot of sheltered workshops, people in there and do certain things. For example, we have a unit which makes food bags. The bags are made there and they are sent for sale elsewhere. And once they get trained there, we were able to place a lot of people in a proper jute bag making firm. They have employed quite a few of our clients there. And the other thing that I think which we decided we should do was offer domestic training for outpatients as well. So we used to have a session for domestic training every day in the afternoon. So there will be one dish that they will have to prepare, for which they have to write down the recipe, write down the steps, procure the ingredients. The ingredients are available. They just have to go collect it and then make the dish, clean the vessels, clean the kitchen table, and that will be one task for them. In the same unit, they were taught making chocolates. And interestingly, a couple of them are making homemade chocolates in their homes, and they're making money. They are able to sell it in the neighborhood with friends and relatives, and they are quite happy with that. And the same thing goes for basket weaving. Though I know it's all replaced by plastic bags and carry bags now, but then still there is a market for those handmade wire bags. So there are people who are working on it, and we have identified outlets which will buy it from them and help them in selling it. Very recently, we had this 2 years back, the government brought a ban on all plastic bags, and so sudden demand for cloth bags. So we encourage most of our women clients who come as outpatients, to start making cloth bags from old churidar, dupattas or old saris, and bring it here. We were helping them to sell them in our sales counter. It may not be a big thing, but it definitely helps them. They were able to find that as a job that they could do. And going around identifying potential employers was a big challenge.
Right.
The best thing was,
I'll
just I will stop with just one more thing. About 5 years back, we started giving out an award for best employers for people who were employing persons with disabilities. Actually, we started giving awards for successful families, caregiver award for the Maitri award for the kind of caregiving that they have given for their families. On the same note, we started an award for the employers as well. So actually what that did was, it brought a lot of them to come and discuss with us about what their experiences were. And they were able to tell us the challenges, which we were able to address again. And every time we were awarding a few employers, we encouraged them to bring in more employers for the program, and they could see how they could also benefit from this kind of population. And just along with that, we okay, I wanted to say something. I just slipped my mind. Yes.
No, and I'll come back with another question later, ma'am. I think it's amazing that all of us are so many miles apart, and the same experiences resonate everywhere in terms of even the kind of products that we turn out, and very often we have to break that gender mold. Like you said, culturally, yes, domestic work, cleaning, cooking is often thought of as a woman's job, but then we can always train all our Shubhartis to do it, and they learn to look after themselves. Excellent responses coming in the chat. We are having suggestions about creating a platform for unpaid employment if a paid option is difficult. There are job opportunities for people with mental illness in the pharma sector. People are appreciating that all of you, in spite of that hugely experienced and highly erudite people, are still using very simple words. So we are happy that there's no hi-fi technical jargon coming in. Somebody is saying in UK it's called reasonable adjustments to help in work. Well, we are trying to move there. That's exactly why Pooja has organized this whole discussion. So I think it's time to come back to Dr. Thatte, because I think one of our favorite sentences is to tell people in the caregivers group to just put away their Shubharti's CV. Because like Dr. Mangala said, there's always a very high expectation. So tell us more, Dr. Thatte, about this whole mental health professional and volunteer working as partners, and how the role of both of them is so important. Along the way, please also highlight how awareness building has been a very big thrust of IPH, and how we have slowly moved to a much larger space, a collaboration with government space and PHFI programs. You could bring all that in your answer. But basically, this partnership between mental health professionals and volunteers.
For that, I would like to add something to with Dr. Mangala. We are making much ha-ha about the cognitive impact of the patients. Actually, it is not so. Each and every patient has different abilities. If you take one task and try to break it into 5 parts, there are some patients who can manage 5th part, some person can manage 4th. It's not that they cannot do. If you take them together as a group, always identify their strengths and weaknesses. You can decide on which product, who can do better. They definitely show a lot of improvement there also. To your question with professionals and volunteers. See, we have a group of almost 150 volunteers at IPH working on different projects. Whenever they come to volunteer on something, we give them option of other activities that we have. Tell them this is the activity, is the activity you have to do with patients. And for that, you have to attend our 2 days workshop we conduct for caregivers every 3 months. Unless and otherwise, they are fully equipped to know how to handle these people, because they are not caregiver volunteers. They are not experienced of handling these people, handling the Shubharti's mood, handling when the Shubharti refuses to do some work someday, how to handle that. They need to be trained in that. And that's why professionals come there, because they help the volunteers to understand the problem that people face. So our experience is that through all these years, the way we have progressed, we know that all our Shubharti, they are showing different abilities. We go on adding products to our list of products also. I just share the screen by showing you something.
Yeah, we can see, ma'am, the various products that you have listed, what is being done at IPH, and it's so close to what Dr. Mangala also said. Totally.
So this is the list of, can you see the list?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So these are the kind of products we have at Trigan. Our biggest product at the moment is Calpro, which is a vitamin-rich porridge, which is designed by a dietitian. And people come and buy this from us. And this gives us a lot of revenues. And the revenue we get is from Thalipit Bhajani. Thalipit Bhajani is a typical Maharashtrian dish. And this is something for which we have 500 kilos from US companies also. There are US agencies who would like to buy from us. So we can send it to them. So there are some of these products which are very popular. Second thing is,
I'll just step in here.
Yeah.
Thatam, I'll just step up because the audience is a little soft. So if you can be a little louder or bring the mic closer. But I'll just add to what ma'am just said that, you know, there's such wonderful partnerships that can emerge. For example, I know that we supply Calpro to the Tata Memorial recovering patients.
Can you hear me now?
So can you tell us more about that? Like, and yeah. But you tell us about this partner, and Asmita, you can also add about how you provide all these products to other agency who's also doing very important patient-based work. Go ahead.
All these products are also where the need expressed by the society. When we started with any new product, and we find that we can market it in a better manner, because all the marketing is done also by the patients.
Yes.
And usually we have, whenever we have stalls, we see to it that our patients go and work on that. They are shown how to handle that.
Right.
So how to stand at the stall, how to sell, what to tell the other people, that is something which need to train them for doing that. And that is something which we regularly do.
Yeah, go ahead, ma'am. They will put the second slide. That's okay. So, Asmita, can you tell us about how exactly you rate the work? Ma'am has put up the...
So this I can show you the turnover has been increasing over the years. That shows that whatever the material cost is there, remaining is distributed among the patients. So that also acts as, I still remember whenever we were distributing that money, one of the patients, I just asked him, what are you going to do with this? So he said, today I'm going to buy everybody at home, and then I'm going to spend this money on my medicines.
Okay.
The kind of feeling he had, now I don't have to depend on somebody for medicine, and I can use my own unearned money for buying medicines. So I'm sure that must have given me a lot of satisfaction, which is very important.
Right. I think ma'am is also highlighting this whole self-esteem building that happens, and the sense of responsibility towards their own well-being and their own wellness. And I think these numbers speak for themselves, because all of us know, everyone working knows that 1920, particularly the beginning part of 20, was already the beginning of lockdown. And slowly there, and yet, you know, we were able to do, you know, reasonably well. And now we're looking to see what happens in 2021. So I think that is very heartening. And it's, Asmita, can you add about also how you rate the work of the Shubhartis in terms of, you know, like in a true employment kind of setting. Yes, Peter Castellino is asking, is there a successful program where the organizations can work closely with employers? And that's exactly what Mr. Satish is also trying for. So Asmita, are you there? Can you just tell us a little more about how the ratings are done by the volunteers, and how exactly do you encourage the Shubhartis to try even harder?
Me? Can you hear me, madam? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Huh.
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah. Actually, when we started Tridal, that time our first goal was to give them the consistency. As Dr. Sandesh said, it is very important to have the consistency. And he was saying that people used to drop out. Like, so when we started, whatever money we used to give, the entire amount would be given for 100% attendance. Like, if you attend, whether you work or not, you will get money. So that is how we have tried, because we thought, even though our intention was never earning the money, but as Madam said, it is the big motivator. So like so we started it that way. If you attend Tridal 100% time, then you will get whatever money is assigned for that particular quarter. That is how we started. Then we have seen that, say, around 80% of the Shubhartis were quite regular. Then from 100% attendance, we have lowered it to 80% attendance and 20% personal hygiene.
Okay.
And like slowly, during the course of time, they have become more consistent. So now, when we are giving the money, that time the attendance carry hardly 5% of the amount, and rest we have slowly introduced the things like, mixing with the peer group, taking initiative, talking to the strangers, then their concentration, their acceptance about the illness, then proactively in getting involved in the production or manning the stall. So slowly we are making it more complex. And depending on these, we are giving them the grades, just like how we used to get in the school, like, A grade, A plus grade, and like that. And accordingly, we distribute the money. And while giving the money, we always tell them why they have been given. Means, sometimes it happens that a particular person may get some 6,000 rupees, whereas a person may get around 2,000. So there is a huge difference of 4,000 is a big amount for them also. So like, we will just say, this is what, see, this person is proactively doing, he is willing to do the different kind of work, and you are doing a great work, no doubt about it. But like, you are avoiding these things. So if you do these things, definitely, and we all would like that everybody should get 6,000 rupees. So that is how we try to encourage them. And we tell them another thing. The thing is that we never compare one Shubharti with another Shubharti while giving the money. Like, we always compare that particular Shubharti, how he was 3 months before and how she is now. Right. So the comparison is within themselves. It is not between one and other Shubharti. Because as you all, means as we all, everybody knows that each one has different capacity and they have different deficits. So it may happen that a person, and actually it happens sometimes, even the caregiver says, my Shubharti is doing so good work, and then she is getting 4,000, and the one who is not good, getting doing so much work is also getting 4,000. Then even for caregivers, we have to tell why this is so, because I think it is not good to compare one Shubharti to another Shubharti. Means like, my Shubharti is very high functional, he is earning. But that doesn't mean that everyone will have the same capacity. So for someone to get dressed up and coming to 3 at a particular time is also very difficult.
Correct.
Whereas for another Shubharti, it may be very easy.
Correct.
It may be very easy, but maybe getting the things done in the kitchen is difficult. So I feel, and that is what we are doing. And of course, we have the guidance of all the professionals, but like, this is how we are giving the money.
No, I think it's wonderful, and I think everyone is picking up tips here how this can so easily move into the shop floor at the workplace if the cues are picked up. Like you guys are so sharp at picking up cues of who is getting disturbed, who is moving for a relapse, who's doing well, where, which area. I think all the psychology and mental health professional audience are also picking up how subtly everyone here, Dr. Mangal talked about it, Sandesh sir talked about it, IPHT, how they're working with, behavioral rewarding, social skills training, practice, scaffolding, which is known to be an excellent rehabilitation methodology, as even literature has established, and the whole act of cognitive retraining, of cognitive stimulation. I remember for SCAF, Kim Muser and I had done many years back a workshop on vocationalization and cognitive retraining, and I know he's coming now for the keynote. So I think that's wonderful how we have slowly and surely built up our knowledge base. Friends, time has flown. It's already an hour, 15 minutes. I'm not sure my Chrissy will tell me how much time we have left, but I'm going to have a quick last round of questions. I think we've already learned a lot from everybody. Just a little bit about the collaborations. I know SCARF has some excellent international collaboration. Saty ma'am will tell us about PHFI and other work that we have tied up with. And definitely Mr. Sandesh will have excellent collaborations that he can share with the corporate world. So I think if we can highlight this, we'll be able to show how fast the message can be spread out beyond our own community, beyond our own organization. So I think we'll start maybe with Dr. Mangala and then go to Tatti ma'am, and then you all can just share. Ma'am, your mic is off. Dr. Mangala, your mic is off. Yes.
Yeah. Talking about research and projects, I think the Madras longitudinal study, which is one of the landmark studies in this part of the world, we have a 35-year-old follow-up of patients with schizophrenia. One of the major benefits of this study was patients were on regular follow-up, which means we were ensuring adherence to medication, we were preventing relapses. So their ability to, and along with that, some basic CSR was also offered. So because of that, they were in a position to acquire jobs and remain functional and productive over a long period of time. And I think also the research that was done on disability has led to a lot of benefits. I think one of the major highlights was that mental illness was included in the Disabilities Act, and that became a good starting point for us to demand for jobs for persons with mental disabilities as well. I think, in fact, we have had experiences of sending our patients for job fairs, which are organized by the disabilities, for persons with disabilities, but then many institutions are not very happy about employing a person with mental illnesses. So there we have to literally go and explain, and then sometimes tell them that the law demands that they be considered, all kinds of things. And that, besides that, staff started a telemedicine project in a remote district called Pudukkottai, which is about 300 kilometers away from Chennai. And as part of the project, we had an excellent CSR team there, people from the community who are working for others in the community, and a lot of activities were incorporated there, which included, it's a place where you have a lot of agriculture related businesses happening. So it was easy to integrate some of our patients into those kind of jobs. And the 100 days work, the Mahatma Manrega scheme, which offers employment, I think through our persistent efforts, we were able to make sure most of our patients with mental health issues who had a disability card, which was issued by the Disability Commission, were getting access to employment in that scheme. So 100 days of employment was definitely ensured for them, which made a very big changed in the way they felt about themselves. And I'm not sure that everybody was actually doing work. Sometimes it used to be the card will be in the patient's name and a family member will be doing, but then this person has to be present there, and gradually they definitely showed improvement by the end of the tenure. Besides that, we were able to provide some seed money, for about several people who are willing to start small businesses, especially in the rural communities. It can be buying a few goats, or it can be starting a basket weaving, using the coconut palms, a lot of such activities for which we were able to provide some seed money for them. I think in the last few years, about 100 to 150 people have benefited. And what is interesting, they are able to pay us back the seed money so that it can be rotated for others. So it is that kind of enthusiasm that people show, which has definitely encouraged us to continue.
Right.
And I think I would like to add here, STAR also has employed quite a few people with mental health disabilities in various capacities in the institution, and they continue to work with us as colleagues.
Yes, I think you have excellent work with Canada too, Ashok Malla, Srividya, all of them.
Yes.
Dr. Thatte, can you tell us a little about HFI project and also about some of the other initiatives like Sapta Sopan, etc.?
Just now, whatever she mentioned, we also have employed 4 of our Shubhartis as assistant to the coordinator, because we have that experience at IPH also, IPH staff also. We have some of the patients who were suffering from long-time depression or panic attacks or anything. When we saw there was some improvement, they slowly started taking them in our employment, and now they are all full-time employees of IPH. So this experience shows us that we can definitely make them employable by the first steps, which are important. That social skill training, that mainstreaming in the society, talking to other people, and these are some of the activities which they are lost on the way because of their illness. Not that they didn't have the two abilities. They had these abilities, but after the illness, they have lost it on the way. And between they had never had any safe emotional environment where they could experience that. So we say this is a kind of emotionally safe and secure environment where they can explore themselves in a better manner, and then we can make them employable.
Right. I think also our major research project, the UGC one, where we become the planners for the Shubhartis, because very often they may not be able to plan their own employment trajectory. So I think that was a big learning. Even the current project that you're doing with PHFI has given us wonderful results. So I think there's much to be learned. I think we'll come to Mr. Sandesh. So tell us a little bit about how you're planning to build on all this learning now with your various collaborations.
Oh, hello. Hello, yes.
Yeah, I've come. Yeah, Mr. Sandesh.
So, Doctor, for us right now.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, was my audio not audible?
Yes, no. We can hear you
okay.
now. Go ahead.
Sure. So, at this point in time, I think for us is to improvise and scale all the services that we're doing. And Hyderabad is a new city, so we would love to take all the work of supported employment and say reintegration happen there. And very intentionally, we have set a workstation as work from rehab in Hyderabad. We want to experiment this as an approach. If there can be a co-working space in another space, why not a co-working space in rehabilitation center? That's something that we're very excited about. Our collaboration with the CNTW, the Cumbria Northern Ware NHS Foundation Trust, in dedicated programs is something that we really look forward for addiction medicine, for community mental health, and the school mental health programs. But in particular, about employment for persons with psychiatric illnesses, the way I see roadmap is working on collaborative trainings not by mental health professionals or just mental health professionals and recovering individuals, but actually bring in qualified trainings. I think that could fill up one space. And also collaborate with organizations, startups, where the products which are handmade by these recovering individuals could be taken out. We've already experimented this with one agarbatti company, a clothing brand, probably expand that scope. And like I said, right, it's all a learning. I've also penned down a few notes of all that's been spoken about. And something that came very closely to me was baking. We've not explored baking, right? But yeah, so detergent, I mean, I don't know if I had a chance to talk about it. We make a lot of detergents. We supply it for organizations within us. We actually use it from citric fruits that we use on campus because we're a large, about 500 odd individuals. So we've been able to make our own detergent, and it's all supervised though. And then we also supply it to a few handful of organization apartment complexes. To me, the focus really is about training, collaborative partnerships with corporates, the ones who can pick a job, work on their own space, handhold them. That's something about they would go on to hold. It's about those who can't do it, either stifle them or handhold them through for that period of time that they would need. To me, is our collaboration. But yeah,
I think these are wonderful takeaways, and I also
Dr. Sohni, before rounding up, you round up, there is one question which I would like to answer.
Sure.
One question has come during pandemic. What did you do?
Yes.
During pandemic, because all these other Shubhartis were coming together, and that social interaction was very, very important to them. Before pandemic, they were using any technology because they were afraid to use it. But after pandemic, when we told them online, all of them started learning that. And right from second week of April till today, they are having 3 activities every week for 2 hours. And all those activities, they participate very well. Most of the activities are planned in such a way, obviously they are not product related. Cognitive stimulation. For example, we send them a link for a short film on Friday, a Saturday, and Monday we discuss that film. Then everybody comes out with ideas, what did they learn from that? And we have seen a lot of people, the way they are watching the movie or observing smaller details and expressing. They also have yoga session every week, which is online. They also have origami session, which is online. And all of them to attend. And in every session, they ask us when Tidal is opening.
Yeah, no, I think, you know what, in the beginning, said Dr. Sharda Menon is the dawn of psychiatry and schizophrenia in India. But for me, Dr. Thatte, you're the dawn also, because, this is just, ma'am, for you to pick up that one very relevant question from the chat. And I think it's amazing that, people, and this has happened in our, in the Sapta Sopan, not only for people with mental illness, but also for the elderly. The project that we are running for the elderly, people who had never touched a device, people who have never gone online, are so smoothly now functioning and joining online meetings. And I think that's amazing, and it has to be recorded that so much of new learning is available. I'm going to come right back to Asmita, right? Because I think she's my most important member here today. So Asmita, stay ready with your experience of when you first conducted the movie watching session, but I'm just going to come to that. But I do have to obey Peter and Chrissy and everyone who has given me a time limit. So I'm quickly going to wind up, and I think there's been a huge amount of learning. We start by saying just very simply that people who don't need to be institutionalized had to have something to do, and that's how rehabilitation activities began and slowly drifted towards employment. And everyone says that that was not the primary agenda on their minds. Then Mr. Sandesh very effectively spoke about preventive and promotive mental health, and talking about how we have to look at growth and self-compassion and the self-esteem and confidence and happiness of the Shubhartis who are part of our project. Then we moved on to the very psychological insights that Thatte ma'am gave us about actually how the role of the professional and the role of the volunteer, and how both of them have to become very alert and vigilant and very sort of benign observers to all the Shubhartis and what they are doing, where they are good, where they are bad, and how that can actually, I can actually see workspace on the shop is engaging our Shubhartis. I think the comment made by Margaret ma'am in the earlier session, she's still there, she's listening to us. So there what she said about how families simply hanging together, apparently dysfunctional families, just hanging in there and supporting each other. And that's exactly what all the people, all the experts today have told us. Sandesh sir told us about the 3 verticals, people who need, who can sort of make a partnership and create a store and it's not scalable, about how highly qualified people can sort of try to get job space but stigma interferes, and then of course specific employee assistance programs for people who are already in employment and who are suffering from some form of mental illness. Lot of clarity he gave us and shared a link for all of us to look at. I think what everybody was saying is have community to buy in. Have the community partner with you. Don't separate yourself from the community. It has to be part of the fabric, what you do. And again, Dr. Mangala gave us examples of job fairs and various skills which are slowly getting picked up. I think Sir talked about the bakery aspect. I think we used to love the bakery at Nimhans. Every time we went there, we used to always go to the rehab bakery for now it's called Roses. But that time we used to love the freshly baked bread from the bakery at Nimhans. Now I think, Asmi, I just want to end with you because I love the simple philosophy, very clear voice that comes in terms of how well they ring true for everyone in the audience. I think we can just push all us professionals aside and listen to you. So just let's end this wonderful session, which I've enjoyed very thoroughly, with your experience when, and I think it's amazing that movie watching can be an experience, can be an activity online for a group who is supposed to have people with mental illness who can't even function supposedly cognitively, emotionally, socially. And here they are giving us such wonderful insights about films that they are watching, very abstract issues that come up in these films. I think there's no end to how much work we can do. So Asmita, your experience.
Actually, when we started the movie watching, that time initially, like it was on the concrete level. Means I don't know how many people they have seen the movie. What is that? Life. It is on the organ donation. It was on organ donation. That was, I remember, that was the Fir Zindagi. That was the first movie given by Dr. Shubha Thatte. And then that time, like, they were just talking matter of factly. Like, okay, so it is very important to donate the organ. That's it. Means it was the one-liner. It was a one-line analysis. Means there was no emotional things like, then one of our Shubhatis, he said, finally, though she decided to donate the organs. Then why so much fuss? Like, means they were, like we were, means basically, means I had initiated that session. So I was like, I thought maybe I am going wrong somewhere. So I should not have started this. But then I had discussion with Thatte ma'am. And then she said, they don't worry, it will come. Means we have to be patient. And then we, like, the process started. And then after that, they have started with showing the movie, showing birds, the name of the building where that person is staying, is this, that, and all. But now slowly, like, then we started giving them our inputs. Means, after they have talked about, usually in one session we have 1 or 2 experts. So we had made it a point to talk about the emotions. See what must have gone through her mind. So why she has reacted in that fashion? So if this would not have happened this way, then what could have been the another result? So like, slowly, slowly we have started, and actually speaking, for that we had to watch the movie very keenly. Means I would say, rather than we had seen watching the movie more keenly because of them, because like, they were taking out all the concrete things so well, like, उसका नाम ये था, that building's name was this, she had worn this color ka dress, which we never had observed because we were more engrossed in the emotions and other part, but they were more toward concrete part. So slowly, like, and then I'm really happy that last week only madam has given us some Israel movie, which was I forgot the name, but it was just a short film. But my kids could discuss for 1 hour, and it was all about the emotion. What are the emotions of that? It is like a film. It is like a kid of, say, means a son. He brings his mother to a old age home, and to a old age home, and he hands over some huge amount, and he says ki this is the amount for 10 years, and if she survives, then I have made some arrangements ki one of my friend, he will sell the house and he will give you the rest of the money, but you make sure that my mother is comfortable, and you just don't forget to give her a dose of hug every day.
Okay.
It is all about, this is the only movie, and then the last shot is like they have shown that the person, that lady is sitting on a wheelchair, and she has a photograph on her lap, which is showing a handsome man, and then this boy who is totally bald.
Okay.
This is only the movie, but actually I was shocked that 2 or 3 of our kids, they could say ki maybe he was dying, he has a cancer, and that's why he is making all the arrangements for her mother. So I think this is the most satisfying moment for me, rather than earning those 14 lakhs rupees in a, means like, it was really, it was wonderful, like,
going from concrete to abstract and reading
yes,
between the lines, which they could,
and like,
who would have thought that, people
yes,
in our
and
rehab
like, I feel we so-called normal people are so biased that these are their deficits and won't be able to do that. And here I would like to say that I got this advantage because my husband, even though he has a schizophrenia, luckily he is cognitively very good. And so I was just thinking, if he can understand the emotion, if he can express the emotion, why can't other? Because the illness is same. Maybe we have to take more efforts. And then I just thought, because I was trying to treat him like a normal, I was expressing myself. That's why maybe he has not lost that ability. But here, maybe their caregivers they don't have the energy, or they don't have the, because see, it's a different, I mean, he is my spouse, so we are almost of the same age, but where there is a child, that time the caregivers are already old, so they just don't want to disturb anything, they don't want to make any experiments which I can afford to do.
Right.
So I just thought, let us give a try. And then madam and Dr. Savita Apte and all my volunteers, they all have supported, and like, it is really a great experience. Like,
I think that's a wonderful and very positive note to end on. So let's just stop there. It's Sunday afternoon. Everyone needs to get back to their families and their food and their schedule for Sunday. So thank you once again, Coach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Janet, all of you, for having all of us, and on behalf of all the participants, I thank you. And thank you, of course, every speaker who spoke on the panel today, Dr. Thatte, Dr. Mangala, Asmita, Sandesh sir, I think you all gave us great inputs. Thank you so much and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you once again to all of the panelists and our moderator for the second segment for today. Thank you so much. We've gone with a lot more insights. I'm sure all of us were taking a lot of notes. Thank you. And I would like to end with the audience, we would not be able to do this for support. So a big thank you to you. However, do not go. We are not yet done. Please stay. Firstly, the whole idea of today's event was to make sure that you gain more insight from learned speakers, better acceptance, better understanding, and therefore reduce stigma. So we will not be giving certificates to the participants. We hope that you have learned something and you are part of the inner circle of understanding what this is all about. Yeah. Secondly, the recordings for today's program and yesterday's program will be put up on our Instagram page, on Facebook, as well as YouTube as quickly as possible. We will try to do it as quickly as possible. Please do search for us as Cooj Goa. Next part is, tomorrow is day 3. Tomorrow is World Schizophrenia Day. And for that, we have an hashtag Pain Proof Purple campaign that will run on Instagram and Facebook. So please do the Instagram stories, the Facebook stories, and Instagram and Facebook posts. Search for the poster. It is a simple poster. It is very few steps. All you have to do is click a picture of anything purple around you, post it on your own Facebook and Instagram or on your story, and put the hashtag painted purple and tag Cooj @Cooj Goa. All right. So we hope to have the same level of participation tomorrow as well. Before we move to the vote of thanks, we'd like to show you a short clipping of what Cooj has been doing in the pandemic. How have we moved everything online, which was part of the relevant question that was picked up. How have we moved everything online during the tough time of the pandemic? Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, can we know?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I would now like to invite our managing director, our pillar, and pretty much the one who manages to have all of these events turn out to be a success, Dr. Peter Castellino, to say a few words and give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Chrissy. And I know it's like almost 1:45, so I won't take much of your time, but I'm really glad at the end of the symposium that we have learned so much. I think the last 2 days has taught us so much. It's brought in so many points. We've shared knowledge. And for us, after 20 years of running Cooj, we realized that we are on the right track, that there's so much of evidence pointing towards the work that we're doing, but there's so much of trial and error that we need to do, so that in many areas there aren't really clear-cut answers, and these need to be tried, these need to be tested, these need to be researched, and only then maybe answers will emerge with time. This is an emerging field where most of us are still grappling with a lot of questions, and it's important to have questions, and our work brings in those kind of questions. And for ourselves, for our family members who are having to deal with people with mental illnesses, for people who are dealing with them, these answers are very, very important for us as a team to kind of emerge with the answers. I really thank a lot of people who have made the symposium very successful. Every speaker, I mean, every session has been very enriching and enlightening, and I think every speaker has brought in the knowledge of their experience as well as research and their work into the fore, and we're really grateful for this. We're grateful for the time that you've taken away from your busy schedules, and especially this weekend, which I mean, everyone treasures the weekend, but we thank you for giving us this time. I don't want to mention all the speakers because there's so many, but I just like to thank every speaker. And in the last session, Dr. Anuradha Sovani, who has really been associated with Coach, has actually trained us on cognitive rehabilitation when we were running our center. We thank you for that. And I'd like to thank all the participants, and we've had participants representing different organizations around India. We've had participants from various parts of the globe, and we have participants who have brought in information and have added value to this symposium. We thank you. We thank you for everyone who. Yes, and I cannot let go without thanking our coach team, who has worked tirelessly to bring the symposium together under the leadership of our program coordinator, Neeta Mascarenas. We thank you so much, Neeta. And I thank our compares, both Dale yesterday and Chrissy today, Chrissy, a little firecracker, who has brought in so much of energy into the program today. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone who has worked tirelessly towards bringing this program together. Thank you so much, and we hope that our associations will continue, our partnerships will continue, that we'll keep learning from one another, and together we will make mental health something which the services around mental health more accessible to people around India. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a nice evening, Peter. Bye.
Bye-bye. We can close up the session.